I'll take no attention to take good labs. Executive session at the end of the session. So we have to stick around. Like at the end of the meeting. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Just announce Chris, but we can stick around. Yeah, I mean, it would happen. Right. I don't know. We're going to close the beginning. Then there's one at the end. Yeah, the one at the end. That's what I care about. Yeah, the one that's every. Yeah, that one.
You get a haircut? I did. Looks nice. Perfect for the summer, right? Well, that's the other things. Yeah, yeah.
No, this is terrible.
That's okay.
I don't.
Has anyone heard from
Want me to text him?
committee member there?
I have not.
You want me to text
My
him?
phone is off.
We have, what time is it? We have 1 minute. We text him.
Sure.
Hi, Diane. How are you? Good, how's it going?
Good.
Oh, I forgot.
Read enough?
It's not one of my
Where's my pen?
Are you coming in person tonight?
This is my one
Question
card.
Yes,
I just texted you. Good.
exactly on time.
All good?
Hey, it's 7 o'clock. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and electronically forwarding to the officially designated newspapers. That this meeting would take place at Town Hall and remotely at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, June 1st, 2021. Meeting details on the draft agenda were also posted on our township website. Please all stand to salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Miss Miggins,
Here.
Miss Eglo,
Here.
Mr. Wasserman?
Here.
Mr. Vinayak? Mayor Prupus?
Here. Great. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Alex, do you want to make an announcement?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick announcement before we move on here about several ordinances that the township had passed and a noticing error that was done by the item of Millburn Short Hills, in which the notices for these ordinances were published in the Montclair Times and not the Millburn item, despite the township receiving verification and ad numbers for the Millburn item. So for those individuals who may be here to hear or for the public hearing regarding ordinance 2576-21 in regards to energy aggregation, or ordinance 2577-21 in regards to restaurants in the business zones, as well as the waiver of parking requirements in the B4, please be advised that those ordinances, public hearings have been adjourned to June 15th at the Township Committee at that time.
Great, thank you. May I have a motion to approve resolution 21-164 to enter into closed session?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We anticipate this to last for 15 minutes, probably a little less. So thank you for your patience and we will return.
I'm sorry to refer to that, but it helps. It helps. Yeah. Right? Yes. Do I know you by the way? No. My name's Sam. Maurice. So you reporter or? No, I'm just a troublemaker. Oh, okay, we like troublemakers. That's what I did when I was in Washington. Yeah. I created problems. State Department. That's what I used to do. We'll find out. Rules and regs. That's what I did. It's rules and regs. Why is it there? Put it on the books and keep it. Up there. Unbelievable. How would people don't do things? For instance, where they go. I tell people crazy. When there's a garbage truck, you come in with the bomb disposal. How do you change a garbage truck into a bomb disposal? Which armory is to put in, and it becomes a BDU, bomb disposal unit. Who has jurisdiction? Which department? Is it the State Department? Is it the Department of Defense? Or is it Homeland Security? I drove them nuts. There were meetings. The State Department wanted it in Commerce Department. Gene Christian said it's mine. They probably said, no, it's ours. They had like all the rules and regulations. Which was needless. They can take several hours. They can take. No, I mean, I probably 15 minutes. Whatever state. Oh, yeah. I need a. Couple of weeks. No. That's like when we got parses.
So if you don't mind.
Nancy, thank you.
Okay. May I have a motion to, we're gonna start the meeting again. May I have a motion to approve the March 9th, 2021 Township Committee minutes?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, reports. Good evening, Millburn Township. Sign Ordinance Review Subcommittee is finalizing a community survey that will be going out shortly. The Taylor Park Entrance Revitalization Subcommittee is working to finalize the RFP for a landscape architect. We've changed the name of the redevelopment of the Department of Public Works to the Redevelopment Study Area Review Subcommittee to reflect the larger scope of the designated area in need of redevelopment. And the Environmental Commission is hosting a home efficiency webinar on June 7th, and more info is on the website and social media channels. Committeewoman Eglo, do you have any reports tonight?
Yes, good evening. Jay Morales is in the audience, and this is part of the Moms Against Gun Violence. And this happens every year on June 4th. And I have a statement from his partner, Diane Nelson, in town. And usually they come in person, both of them, and come up to the microphone, but we're a little different this year. As we approach National Gun Violence Awareness Day on June 4th, followed by #WearOrange Weekend, let us remember the origins of this powerful event. Wear Orange originated on June 2nd, 2015, what would have been Heidi Pendleton's 18th birthday. It began with teenagers in Chicago who wanted to honor their friend Hadia after she was shot and killed. Today, Wear Orange honors Hadia and more than 100 Americans shot and killed every day, as well as the hundreds more who are wounded. We wear orange to demand a future free from gun violence. Orange symbolizes the value of each person's life, and we wear it to honor those taken and wounded by gun violence and to call for an end to this crisis. Learn more at wearorange.org. And I pulled something up from Governor Murphy's site, and he has a lot of ways that he's trying to work to end gun violence. And a couple of points were require firearm safety training, mandate safe storage of firearms, raise the minimum age to purchase long guns to 21. And this is a really important one. Establish electronic ammunition sales recording, so people cannot just keep going and hoarding ammunition. So this is something that since I've got involved in town with Jay and Diane, is just really important. I've gone to different events with them, and everybody, if you watch the news, every single day. There are more shootings. Yesterday in Brooklyn, 9 shootings, 15 people wounded. A fireman in California just earlier today went and shot 2 people at his firehouse and then set his huge mansion on fire. And they were afraid to go put the house out because they were afraid he was going to shoot more fire people who are coming. So this is just such an endemic problem in our society. And it's just heartbreaking and sad. And Jay, if you just want to say a couple of words, if anything you want to add, I invite you up briefly.
So on behalf of Every Town for Gun Safety and Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, I would like to thank Committeewoman Aglow and the rest of the Township Committee for their continued support of Wear Orange and raising the awareness of the toll that gun violence takes in our country. Every day in the US, over 100 people die at the hands of a gun. The rate of gun deaths in the US is nearly 5 times that of Canada, 35 times that of the UK, and 53 times that of Japan. Orange is the color that Hadiah Pendleton's friends wore in her honor when she was shot and killed in Chicago at the age of 15, just 1 week after performing at President Obama's second inaugural parade in 2013. Now, Wear Orange events are held across the country to remember lives lost to gun violence and to raise awareness about this public health crisis. Thanks again for the support.
Thank you. And one last thing, Committeeman Wasserman and I will be working on Pride flag raising, hopefully next Monday or Tuesday. June 10th is Pride flag. This is international Pride. So I'm very proud of our community. We had a BLM march. We had an anti-Asian hate. And then last weekend, this past weekend in the park, and it was last Tuesday, rabbis from our 3 synagogues in town, led by Rabbi Bogominsky, we had over 300 Jewish people show up to talk about anti-Semitism, stopping anti-Semitism. So we stand for everybody in this community. And Pride, if you associate yourself as part of the LGBTQ community or have a family member or a friend or everybody. So I think this is also another really important thing that Millburn community does to stand in solidarity with all of our residents. So we'll be working on that for next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Committeewoman.
No
Higgins.
reports.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Wasserman.
Yeah, thank you. I was gonna say, I could say to Committeewoman Aglow that you can have pride that you raised the flag for the first time in our history. I guess it was 2 years.
3 years ago,
3
I
years
think.
ago. Anyway, that was a very proud moment for the township, and we'll be doing it again. And also, I just only have one report that for CETA, that artist Michael Cooper will be breaking ground on We Are All Together Now, the sculpture in Taylor Park, hopefully in the next 2 weeks. And should be here, we're hopefully that it'll be finished at some point this summer. And we're really looking forward to that. And those are my reports.
Great. Committeeman Vignaya. Okay. Mr. Falcon, do you have any reports for us tonight? Okay.
I wanted to let everybody know that the mediation is going apace. We had a mediation session this afternoon. There will be another one on the 3rd, and there will be a following mediation session on the 9th. And further, that Judge Gardner has extended the immunity of the township to July 15th.
Mr. McDonald.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I just wanted to say that despite the uncooperative weather this past weekend, we had a very nice turnout for the 2021 Memorial Day Parade. I want to thank all those who were able to participate in the rainy weather, and thank all those who worked quickly to pull it together when we understood restrictions were going to be lifted. We've heard some constructive and important feedback about the date and time of the parade here in Millburn. There are several reasons that we chose to have a Saturday parade, but it is important that we continue to look at improving the Memorial Day Parade, and that includes an evaluation of when it takes place. We'll be reaching out to those that participated this year, get additional feedback, and work with the committee to discuss any potential changes. It was a wonderful community event, and just want to be sure that it continues to be just that in remembrance of all those that paid the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Thank you again to all those who were involved. Just another reminder about the ordinances for those that have showed up after we made that announcement. We have put out public notices on the township's website to remind people that the ordinances for restaurants and the ordinance for energy aggregation are being, the public hearings are being carried until June 15th. And that concludes my reports.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Molman? Awesome. Thank you.
So back in February, we started a 6-month pilot of the food waste recycling program. To date, we've collected 7,910 pounds of food waste at the Public Works yard with an average of about 495 pounds per week. We had a brief discussion amongst the people organizing this pilot a few weeks ago, and we've decided to continue the pilot for another 6 months. And we're going to try and expand the number of participants who can take part in the program, because we're finding that even though we're recycling a lot, we're still filling probably about 50% of the totals we have. So if we want to make more capacity of what we're paying for collections, we're going to invite you know, a slow, gradual pace of more residents to bring their food waste to the yard and join the program and see what it looks like going into next year.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, we have a few presentations tonight, and JCP&L will be presenting first. So, Ms. Bianchi, are you? I think she's working.
Okay, can everybody see me?
We can.
Yes.
We can.
Okay, terrific. I got a little nervous because logistically the meeting restarted. So tell me when you're ready.
We are ready for you.
Okay, terrific. So what I'm going to do is, can you see my slide presentation? First of all, I just want to introduce myself. Carol Bianchi, I'm your External Affairs Liaison from JCP&L. And I just want to make sure that you can see my screen.
We can.
Okay, terrific. So I want to thank you for inviting me here tonight to present and allowing me to do so virtually. I do plan to come to visit all of you live. That's happening soon. But I know you have other things on your agenda, so I'd like to get started and I'll welcome your questions. So again, what this presentation tonight is basically to review our storm restoration process and to talk to you about some changes that we've implemented since Tropical Storm Isaias. We go. Okay, so this is our service restoration process. And I think many of you are very familiar with it. It is posted on our website. And I'm trying to advance the next screen. But basically, this talks about the steps that we take to restore power. And with every storm, I'm trying to advance to the next slide, but it's not allowing me to.
We're going to try to help you on.
Thank you. It's supposed to automatically show you, it's supposed to have pop-ups.
Carol, just give us 1 second. We were sharing the screen as well, so we're going to just revert back to your screen.
Oh, that's great. All right, we'll get there. Okay, tell me if you can see this. Can everybody see my screen?
No, it's all black.
Yeah, just give us 1 second.
Sure.
There we go.
All right. Okay, let me take it from the top. Can you see it?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, so let me go back to my next slide. It's much better if I can control it. So this is our storm restoration.
Sorry, Carol, I'm sorry to interrupt. We're just having a little bit of technical difficulty. If you just let us know when you want to advance the slides, Jesse will advance the slides on our end.
Okay, so, all right. So if you could see this screen right here. All right, so when we're restoring power, we start at the very top. We have to address any issues, and you can continue with the slides. It'll show like the numbers of how we, if you go to the next slide, let's see what happens. Okay,
We're not moving on our end, Carol.
oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
I just don't have any control over my slides. Okay, so we'll start at slide 2. Are you there with me, Jesse?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just take it from there. I can't see what you're seeing on your end. That's the problem.
Do you think we should we kind of reschedule this, or?
No, I'm ready. But what if I hit like, if I share my screen, will you be able to see it? I see that there's an option on the bottom.
Can she share her screen? Yes, why don't we try that? You share.
Okay, so you have to stop sharing and it'll allow me to. Okay. All right, tell me if you can see my screen. You can see it or no?
How about you just keep telling us what you want to do?
Okay, I'm going to be on slide 2, if you can see that. And basically, this is our storm restoration process. It is posted on our website, and it just defines for you the different steps that we take. We have to start at the top and make sure that we address any hazards and make the situation safe. And we assess all of the damage before we can actually start restoration. We have to repair the high voltage lines and restore the essential functions before we moving on to critical facilities and road closures, hospitals, and as I said, opening up roadways. Then we work on repairing the main feeder line and the distribution lines. And next we address the neighborhoods, starting with the largest number of customers and then restoring individual homes. So that's the storm restoration process. And then I would like to move to talk about the tree density in New Jersey. And can you see the slide 3?
We
No,
cannot,
just
but
keep
we can
telling
hear
us.
you.
We can
Okay.
Talk to us.
So basically, and this will be published on your website. I shared it with the mayor and she will be publishing it. So this will be, something that the residents and all of you can see after the meeting. But basically with the tree density in New Jersey, this is very challenging for JCP&L territory. And when you look at the slides 3 through, there's a few slides, it will show you the different territories of the electric distribution companies. And JCP&L has an extremely treed area. And as all of you know, with ECAS, the #1 cause of outages are trees, and often the trees off the right of way. So we have a high density of trees throughout our territory. Our friends at PSE&G, and yes, they are our friends and we root for each other, but they do not have those challenges with the trees based on the geography. So you'll see that when you see the slide presentation. So let me move on to the next. I just want to scroll down. Okay, you'll also, I'm going to be providing you with, when you see the slideshow, with the different mobile tools and the resources that are available for the residents and for all of you. We have a 24/7 power center, and there's My Town pages, which are available for every community. So Millburn has its own page where you can actually see the number of customers who are out of power on any given day. You can see on the maps, you can see exactly where a power outage is and how many are out of power and the restoration time, the ETRs. You can use the texting feature for alerts and reminders. By text messaging REG to the number 54487. And if you could see my screen, the next slide would tell you about the phone numbers and the website. And what's really important is that residents always call the 888 lights number. And for downed wires, we are encouraging you to always call 911 because of the emergency. For all other services, we have an 800-662-3115 number. And your emergency responders, as you know, have special phone numbers that they call for critical facilities and true emergencies. And we're going to be reviewing those. We have an OEM meeting coming up on June 8th. And we have invited to our annual county OEM meeting, we've invited all of our local OEM coordinators. So I understand that that is Chris Beatty, or it could be somebody who fulfills that role. It could be Alex who's attending. So I look forward to seeing you, Alex, or Chris at that meeting. The other slides will show you that JCP&L has a regular preventative maintenance program. We inspect every circuit on a 5-year cycle. That's overhead. Our wood poles are inspected every 10 years. And just so everyone understands, we have JCP&L poles, and then about half the poles are owned by Verizon. So each of us has our own inspection program, and we coordinate when there's issues concerning the poles. We also do thermography or infrared scans, and these are conducted on a 4-year cycle. And the infrared camera detects issues that are not visible to the eye. And so again, we do those every 4 years. Additional reliability programs, we do our vegetation management on a 4-year cycle on all of our circuits. We remove all of the overhang, and we also address ash trees in our right-of-way. And then we also have circuits. The circuits that are not performing well, according to the BPU standards, are constantly being studied. And we address specifically what the history is on those circuits, what was causing the outages. And we are required, and we want to have good performance on our circuits. So we will come up with programs. If it's caused by tree damage, we will do more vegetation management. If there's other issues, we will address it with some type of reliability. I think a perfect example of this would be the fact, some of the programs that we've done for Millburn specifically. As you know, we have completed a flood mitigation project at the Canoe Brook substation. The Canoe Brook substation was subject to flooding historically. And this is a very important substation that serves the Short Hills Mall and about 300 customers. So that was completed in November of 2020. We also conducted 29 miles of vegetation management, and this was in addition to our 4-year cycle of tree trimming. So again, this was all part of our Reliability Plus program that was conducted from 2019 through 2020. What's coming next? This year, we're doing overhead inspections and underground inspections on the Short Hills circuit and the Waverly circuit. We have our forestry 4-year cycle of work we're conducting on the Bryant Park and Waverly circuits. Thermography will be conducted on the Bryant Park, 7 of the Millburn circuits, Short Hill circuits, and Waverly. And our pole inspections were all completed in 2020. So that is basically much of my presentation, but a couple other things I would like to share with you, if you would indulge me a little bit more. I would like to talk about a couple of distinctions that were recognized for First Energy and JCP&L this year, which are aligned with our core values. And one of them was, for the 3rd consecutive year, we've been recognized for our diversity and inclusion initiatives. We've also been recognized by the Commerce and Industry Association of New Jersey and Commerce Magazine with the Environmental Leadership Award for recycling and our pollution programs. And we've also planted, as part of our environmental initiatives, we've planted trees throughout our territory for Arbor and Earth Day. Lastly, I'd like to talk about a couple things, if you could indulge me for 2 more minutes. One of them is the role of the External Affairs Liaison. I do enjoy my role, and I work closely with Alex, and I've worked closely with your mayors over the 2 years that I've been here. And we do enjoy that relationship, and I really am here to help your town. My role really is to help you with municipal issues or anything that is escalated. So I would just ask you that, when you have something that you want to be addressed, just notify me. If you have something that's coming up on your agenda that involves JCP&L, just give me an opportunity to address it, because we can really enjoy that collaborative relationship. Finally, I want to talk about the post-ECAS changes that are coming. We conducted a tremendous amount of stakeholder feedback and internal reviews, what we call a hot wash after the storm. And as a result, our customers can look forward to enjoying, we're going to be working on a better estimated time of restoration process, because we understand that global ETR caused a lot of uncertainty during the storms. So what we're trying to do is to come up with a process that will allow us to give you better ETRs ahead of the global, which we're required to provide, by the way, under the BP rules. We're also updating our script in text messaging and our reverse phone calls to customers so that there can be better interaction to indicate whether or not power is still out. Ice and water. We've heard our customers and we are implementing a wholesale ice and water distribution. And in fact, I'm working with your chief Echevarria to work with him so that we can deliver ice and water to Millburn. And we're going to work with your fire department to distribute it to our customers. And that will be in addition to our retail ice and water program at our stores. We're working harder to inform the public about our storm restoration process. We are now issuing a quarterly newsletter to our officials. We're implementing a public officials handbook. As I mentioned before, we're inviting our local OEMs to come to our annual meeting, and that's June 8th. During a storm, we're going to have more regional calls. I think, Alex, you were on some of those calls, the mayor's calls, we call them, or public officials calls. But we're going to be breaking them up into more regional calls so that we can address your specific concerns. And we will have leadership from operations, external affairs, to talk about your specific concerns. A few more things. We're exploring an upgraded banner on our My Towns page so we can provide more information about restoration and ice and water during storm events. And those are basically the highlights of what I wanted to share with you, but I do want to give you some time if you have questions for me.
Does anyone have questions?
Yeah. Hi, Mrs. Bianchi. Nice to see you. Although
Nice to see you.
I do have a question. At our last meeting, we had a pretty detailed presentation on energy aggregation. And one resident asked why we have JCP&L and PSE&G where some towns just have one. So maybe you could address that as to why that is like it is and if it would ever be viable to even discussing changing that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. And again, once a mayor, always a mayor. So
Let's say you two are an ex-mayor, so in the ex-mayor club.
Yes, exactly. So yes, with regard to that question, we are a regulated utility. So the Board of Public Utilities basically approves everything that we do. But in terms of infrastructure, we own the infrastructure in the territory. So we have Millburn, and I feel fortunate for that. PSE&G owns their own infrastructure. So it's not really a matter of saying, let's let PSE&G take over Millburn's territory. We each own our own infrastructure, and accordingly, we're regulated by the Board of Public Utilities. So we don't make decisions that are not determined by the Board of Public Utilities. You also have a customer rate advocate. So every time we go before the Board of Public Utilities, the towns and the customers are being represented by an advocate. So I just wanted to let you know that. So it's really a collaborative effort working with the BPU. But in terms of infrastructure, we do own the infrastructure, and that includes Millburn. So I hope that clarifies a little bit.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, so we'll put the presentation. Thank you, Ms. Bianchi, for your time tonight. We'll put the presentation up on the website.
Thank you, Maren. I'm sorry that this screen sharing didn't work out so well tonight.
All is well.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Next, we will have a presentation tonight on two-way traffic in downtown Millburn, and we have Corlairs Engineering with Maurice Rached tonight to present to us with some of the other members from the subcommittee that's been working together for a couple months now.
Evening, Mayor, Committee, Alex, Jesse. If everybody's well, I'm Dan Bear. I'm a member of the committee that's working on an opportunity that's emerged from your vision plan, something that's been talked about for many years. And we've watched the downtown suffer from the abuse related to the situation at the I-24 and 78 merge, which has forced traffic into our town for many, many years. And our town has been used as a cut through. So from the vision plan has emerged an opportunity to take a look at the feasibility of converting the one-way traffic system to a two-way traffic system. And I'm part of, Jesse, if you go to the next slide, please. Part of a group that is very knowledgeable of the transportation traffic issues in the town. And along with the mayor and committee person Vinayak, I'm working with Gaston Halpert, who's here tonight, along with our traffic engineer, Maurice Shashad, David Hawes, Jen Duckworth, Alex, and I think I got everybody. So we've been working very hard and been asking a lot of tough questions to our traffic engineer. And he has prepared a feasibility study and he'll present the results of that tonight. I've been asked to make a short introduction, which I will, if my glasses don't fog up from my mask. Downtowns like Millburn are a microcosm of a number of different elements and forces that, when integrated appropriately, can drive economic vitality, excitement, and energy. Such elements include spacious sidewalks and vegetation, consistent and appropriate scaled signage, and a street circulation pattern that is conducive to shopping, efficient parking, and coordinates well with pedestrian patterns and other shared modal opportunities. Other nearby downtowns, such as those in Maplewood and Westfield, Cranford, and Summit, contain well-balanced systems of two-way traffic that slows traffic, prioritizes pedestrian movements, and creates an improved shopping environment. Now, tonight's presentation addresses only the feasibility of a two-way traffic system in downtown Millburn. I think that's important because it's just the first step of a longer process. This process requires a holistic look at downtown traffic patterns and the surrounding neighborhoods while incorporating significant stakeholder and public discussion. And this presentation opportunity builds upon years of discussion and the goals of the objectives of the township master plan, recommendations from your recently prepared vision plan, and those from the Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board and the PTOC. So at this time, I'm going to turn this presentation over to Maurice, who will provide an overview of the status and feasibility of the two-way traffic pattern for downtown Millburn. And I have to say I'm encouraged, and I believe this opportunity, combined with other options that will emerge from your vision plan that you are moving forward, will result in a new level of excitement and vitality for the downtown. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight. Maurice, it's all yours.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It is very good to be here in person. And actually, I learned only yesterday this was an in-person meeting, and I was excited to actually be here in person. Mayor, may I remove my mask or should I keep it on?
You can remove it.
Okay, very well. Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank the committee, Alex, all the members of the township for giving me this opportunity to continue to serve you. And tonight and in the last few weeks, I've been serving you in a different capacity. We're trying to explore a change to the downtown area. Like Dan, I think we can call him mayor also. He belongs to the club. As Dan said, this is a change that is worthy of exploration, is worthy of being studied. And this is what we're doing tonight. And tonight we're going to show you and show the public some of the results of that preliminary look at traffic patterns and what will happen if the downtown area, specifically Essex and Millburn, would be reconfigured as two-way streets. So with that, we start moving forward with the presentation. And the first, let's go over some of the goals and objectives of the study and the master plan. And if you look at your master plan, there are certain goals and objectives. And I highlighted actually some of the wording in that statement. I will not read it to you, But that wording has to do with traffic circulation, with quality of life, with improvements to the economic vitality of the Millburn. And these were guiding principles for me as I'm conducting the study and trying to figure out if a two-way operation makes sense, if a two-way operation works, if a two-way operation is safe, if a two-way operation has no impact or positive impact to the surrounding neighborhoods in Millburn. On the next slide, we have a statement, and this one actually I'd like to read. It's an interesting statement from your master plan. And it says, traffic circulation in the downtown should be viewed with the goal of business promotion and not only with the traditional goal of facilitating through traffic. That's a very important statement because it really captures what we're trying to do in this, let's call it exploration, or in this preliminary study. And on the next slide, you'll see additional goals and objectives of the study proper. I'll read some of them to you. Reduce vehicular speed, that is paramount. This is basically the most important and the whole idea behind turning Essex and Millburn into two-way streets. The main idea is to reduce vehicular speed, improve pedestrian safety, and later on, Gaston would talk about sidewalks, crossings, signage, trees, and other related installations, improve access to businesses, improve access to parking, reduce unnecessary circulation. It happens to me, at least, when I come to Millburn and the business or the destination I'm going to is on the other side. I have to go around the block. And also change the character of the street or the streets from being transient to being a downtown neighborhood access type streets. I think that's very relevant, and Dan talked about this a little bit. And in the end, I have also provide alternatives. Right now, if you're going east-west or west-east, you have one alternative. Either you go on Millburn or Essex. And if we turn the streets into two-way streets, we will have two alternatives going east and two alternatives going west. Moving on the goals and objective. One main idea that we all talked about, we discussed, was the circulation committee. Gaston is a member of the circulation committee, Dan is, and some of the committee members are as well. And members of the public also are members of the committee. Is to build on previous plans and input from the public, and input from the public that's going to happen quite a bit moving forward. Collaborate or continue to collaborate with the various committees and stakeholders, and capitalize on new opportunities. And what do we mean by new opportunities? I believe that's something maybe Gaston is going to talk about a little bit later on. Safety, sidewalks, signage, trees, maybe bicycle circulation in town, and many related items. So let's talk about the science of two-way versus one-way. One-way streets became very popular back in the 40s and the 50s. And if I'm not mistaken, by the way, there is a beautiful book. It's the History of Millburn. And so I read the book, and it has a lot of neat information in it. Because I was trying to find out when were Essex and Millburn reconfigured into one-way streets. According to this book, it happened in the late 40s. It happened quite some time ago. And so at that time, people that did what I do today, people in different agencies at the county level or the state level, were mostly interested in moving traffic from point A to point B, mostly interested in moving traffic on a regional level. In my opinion, I believe that's why Essex Street and Millburn Avenue were made into one-way streets. One-way streets are more efficient, no question about it. It gets cars to travel faster, it moves more traffic. But in my opinion, and in the opinion of vast majority of planners and business owners, and they're not very conducive to a downtown, to a safe downtown environment. They're not very conducive to economic development, to pedestrian safety, to proper access. So the existing one-way pattern had a couple of objectives: to facilitate east-west movement on a regional level, to cater to transient traffic, and to increase vehicular capacity and speed. And Dan reminded me last week that I had done a study approximately about 10 years ago on cut-through traffic in the downtown area. And we did a license plate survey. So we found out which license plate is going through the town and which ones are going to the town. And we found that 90% actually went through the town. So I call this transient traffic. And so what are the consequences of a one-way operation? Higher vehicular speed. And this, by the way, has been proven. This is not my opinion or the opinion of maybe some people around us. This has been proven nationally then that when you transform a street from a two-way to one-way, speed will increase, no question about it. More cut-through traffic, like I indicated, because it becomes the path of least resistance, especially today with the advancement of all the technology we have, Waze and Google and other tools we have that analyze which is the path of least resistance, and that's where we're directed. And it's inconsistent with the downtown environment. And what do I mean by that? If you go to most successful downtowns in the state and around the nation, one-way pattern is not common. You do find them every now and then. And by the way, I'll talk about this briefly later on. Many of the cities and towns around the nation are doing what we're talking about today, going from one-way streets to two-way streets. And if you Google that subject, you find articles with a listing of all these cities. So if we compare a one-way street pattern to a two-way street pattern, like we said, the one-way pattern is more efficient, higher speed. It's usually suitable for larger cities to do one-way pairs. A two-way street system will give us lower speed, better access to businesses, better east-west access if you look at it actually from a homeland security perspective, will be a plus, because right now in a portion of Millburn Avenue, there's only one lane. If that lane is closed, you can't go east-west. So a two-way operation will give you another opportunity, which is important for safety and mobility for the local area. It is suitable and typical for downtowns. And this will give us also an opportunity to enhance the technology of the traffic signals and provide more efficient systems. So I tried to look at other downtowns in New Jersey, and what I did, I went to the top 5, the top 10, some articles that have been published in the last couple of years. And these are some of the names. This is not a comprehensive list, but some of the names of some of these downtowns that others have deemed as desirable or successful downtowns. And you look at them and they all have two-way street systems. Jesse? Yep. So let me go over what are we doing and what are the phases. So like Dan said earlier, this is phase one. This is the phase where we collect data, analyze the data, and figure out, is this something viable? Is it doable? And then we engage with each other, with the public, to ask questions and answer questions. We look at ideas. We explore different ways of doing things. And all of that happens in phase one. And this is where we are now. So phase one is the exploration, the feasibility, and the public engagement phase. And during that phase also, we collaborate with the county. These roads are county roads, so we need their consent to make changes. And based on a preliminary meeting with the county seems to be inclined to agree with the town on these issues. But at some point, we will need something firm from the county, like a letter or some type of a document indicating, yes, we agree with you and we're good with the two-way operation. So beyond that, phase two would be that we, based on the public input and based on the ongoing collaboration, we refine the study, maybe answer additional questions in the study, look at different aspects of the circulation, and do a conceptual design. A conceptual design gives you a bird's eye view of how Millburn and Essex will look like under a two-way operation. So you'll be able to see lanes, parking, sidewalks, and other installations in a visual way so that you can understand what is the physical impact of going into a two-way operation. Phase three is really the hardcore design. That's what somebody like me or another engineer will do. They'll come up with plans and details and specifications to prepare in preparation for bidding the work. And phase four is the implementation. That is the construction management and the actual implementation. So let's talk about some high-level results of the study. The study is available online, I believe, if you want to dig into it and see the details of the analyses. But this gives you a high-level overview of what we did. So these are the steps that were taken. There were a lot of discussions with you planners, with members of the committee, with members of the public, and others. And then we did data collection. We have some of the data collected before COVID and some during. The data we collected during COVID, we had to revise it and increase it to match what we expect to happen after COVID is behind us. Then we analyzed the data. We created a model for the network to see how traffic will move. And we issued a draft report. So I'll give you little bits and pieces of some of the results of the report and the analysis. In terms of delay, when we go from one-way to two-way, there will be a little bit more delay, but it's not significant. On average, today, each vehicle is being delayed 13 seconds. That means some are being delayed maybe 5 if they're driving through and they're lucky to get the green lights. Some are delayed maybe 60, 70 seconds. But on average, if you look at every car throughout the whole network, the average car going through the downtown area is delayed 13 seconds. If we go to a two-way configuration, the average car will be delayed 17 seconds. That was actually, to me, positive news. It would have been negative if the number went from 13 to 40, for example, or to 50. But we expected that. And this is part of what we're doing. We're slowing people down. It's going to take a little bit longer to traverse the downtown area. The next slide will show you another metric, and that is the speed metric. Now, you may look at it and say, okay, we're going from 14 to 12. This is not a big decrease, but that's the average. The decrease will be in the speeding vehicles, which the model doesn't capture. We don't mind people going 14 miles an hour on average, or 12 or 15. We mind someone going 35 miles an hour or 40 miles an hour on these portion of Millburn, for example, that are 3 lanes, or portions of Essex that feel like it's a part of a large roadway where people speed. So you will see that when we go into two-way operation, let's call it the upper limit of vehicular speed. Scientifically, we can call that 91st percentile or 96th percentile. And let's say that is 35 miles an hour. That's where you're going to see the reduction when it's a two-way operation. Because the two-way operation, by driving it, by looking at it, by experiencing it, does not encourage speeding. It is not conducive to a driver going 30, 35 miles an hour. So this would be one of the key benefits of the study. So I think now Gaston is going to help me a little bit in talking about some of the opportunities. And these are all issues very important to the committee. And I know to Gaston because he called me on them many, many times. So Gaston, give me a hand here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gaston Halpert. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I am the co-chair of the PTOC, which is Parent Teacher Organization, the commission or council or conference, not sure which one it is, but we all call it the same, PTOC Safety Committee. I'm also the liaison for the committee to the PSAB. I have served now for 3 years on the planning board, and I was also on the downtown vision plan steering committee. That's one of the reasons why I'm up here now. I wanted to agree with Maurice that the two-way traffic is completely compliant with the master plan. It has so many benefits. Not only will it help us increase or enhance the economic vitality, but it will also help us make a more pedestrian-friendly and biker-friendly zone for the downtown area. It will get our visitors to come in, welcome them, and have them linger to increase our vitality. One way that the two-way traffic will help, it not only makes the drivers aware of everybody, but it also makes pedestrians aware of the traffic coming in and out. And they are more used to it. And most of our streets around town, it's not one-way traffic, it's two-way traffic. So not only are we going to be calming traffic, we're making people more aware. We're making it safer for our pedestrians and bikers to be in the area. Let's see, and over the past several years, the number of pedestrian crashes in downtown Millburn is down significantly, around 75% to 2 to 3 incidents per year, which is great. We were up at 13, 14, 12, not too long ago. Jen Duckworth and I are happy to be included in this exploration process to make sure that Millburn maintains and even improves on our pedestrian and bike safety. In line with Goal 2, it is my intention to ensure that while enhancing our economic vitality, our downtown becomes a safer and more comfortable destination for all of us, and everyone safely returns home after their downtown experience. I mean, a goal of 0 pedestrian incidents. The way we, or what we're looking into now in our exploration phases for pedestrian safety, we're looking into the pedestrian crossing phases. Right now in town, we have an interval of about 6 seconds, a leading interval for pedestrians. We're looking into where we need to put those and how we need to adjust the traffic phases to make sure that it gives the pedestrians enough time to get across safely without getting too much interaction with left turning traffic. We're looking into increasing sidewalk widths. There's some areas in town where we have plenty of space to do so, to make it a more enjoyable space, add some trees. We're also looking into bike lanes, and do we have enough room to have a dedicated bike lane And if not, we'll have shared bike lanes, which we call sharrows. Right now on on Essex Street, we'll have the route across town. We're also looking at a connection in between South Mountain Reservation and Taylor Park, which Perkins Eastman, the consultant we're working with on the vision plan, has spec'd out to have some type of a bike lane and a wider sidewalk. So hopefully that's in the works. We're also looking into the placement of loading zones to make sure they're not interfering with any crosswalks. And also parking, just parked cars in general, to make sure that there's enough space in between the last parked car and visual distance of the pedestrian waiting to cross the street. We're looking at mid-street crossings and signalized mid-street crossings. We're looking at moving one of the mid-street crossings to make it more effective in getting people across the street from the garage on Essex Street. Where we once had no left turns, we're looking at left turns, but again, we're going to increase traffic, try to also increase pedestrian safety from Main Street and to onto Essex Street, where Millburn and Essex Streets split and come back together. We're looking at a four-way stop. We're looking at a signalized intersection, anything to try and help people, make people feel more comfortable. And last of all, and probably my favorite, we're looking at tree lines down most of the major streets. This one is so fascinating to me. Not only is it a green solution, it's providing us with stormwater management. It's providing us with a natural calming solution for the drivers. It's providing us a barrier in between the pedestrians and the traffic. It's providing us with a reduction in the heat island effect. There are just so many good reasons why we need to have a tree line on our streets. So anyway, these are just some of the things that we're looking at. I'm going to leave the rest up to Maurice because I don't want to mess up the vehicular queuing. Would you mind, Maurice?
Thank you.
And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Gaston, throughout the last few weeks, to your good questions and guidance. You made the study a lot better than it is, and it's going to continue, hopefully, to move in that direction. So in terms of what are the next steps? So where do we go from here? So one very important step that I mentioned a little bit before is to continue the discussion with the county. They have asked some questions. They have asked us to address certain elements in the study, which we did. And now we need to submit that revised study to them. And what we're expecting is that they will agree with the study and they will approve the study. Then we will conduct internal briefings, stakeholder engagements, public outreach. And the next step would be to incorporate the elements of the public outreach and the element of the stakeholder engagement in the study. And then we finalize the study before we move to stage 2. So let me wrap this up by saying a couple of things. One of them is that it's been a primary concern to me and to all of us to make sure that the surrounding neighborhoods are not negatively impacted, or the opposite, they're positively impacted by this. Number 2, we're looking for this to be an opportunity, and I think Gaston gave you most of the opportunities that we're looking to do as part of this transformation, assuming that we all agree to do it, the county agrees, and we're moving forward. And last, I would like to again thank the committee. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Alex, Jesse, everyone, Dan, Gaston, for putting your trust in me. And I'm only a tool here. I'm only a tool and a conduit to arrive to the right decision. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much. Do any of the members of the committee at this point have any questions for Maurice?
I have a couple questions. Maurice, first of all, thank you so much for your work with us. It's always been excellent.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to say that. And also to the members of the committee for working so many hours on this. I guess my question just a couple questions. Number one is, tell me how the bump outs, how you see the bump outs in terms of how that affects two-way traffic. I know a while ago we discussed this, but can you bring me up to date in terms
Yes.
of the bump outs? Do we have to reduce them or no?
Yes, you do. So we looked at that, and actually I looked at it tonight on the way here. I stopped for a minute or so and looked at certain areas. In certain areas, we may need to reduce the bump outs a little bit to allow for the 2 lanes. These are the areas where currently you have 1 lane and you have that little shoulder area. So in these areas, it's a slight change, but they'll be reduced a little bit.
And number 2 is in terms of implementation, are you thinking, you may not have gotten this far, I'm just asking questions, but are you thinking that maybe you would implement, parts of it so we don't disrupt our residents and our merchants?
That's a very good question, and we discussed it several times. It is something we need to think about very hard. We need to get input from the business community. We also need to maybe do a study just for that, little study, to figure out what is the best approach. Do we do, for example, Millburn first, then Essex? Do we do block by block? Do we select certain intersections to do? Without digging very deep into it, it seems to me there are many options, but it seems to me that one logical option is to do one street and then the next. This way, at least the community has some relief on the other street, and the street we're working on would be the only area where we have, let's call it, friction as far as traffic and business.
And I would expect that there might be a seasonal component to this also in
There
terms of
is.
when you want to do it, right?
There is a seasonal component, even though for traffic signal work, the season is usually a little bit longer than other types of public works.
Okay, my last question, which is if, with our committee has voted already to take out the raised parking at some point, we're working on that. But the question I have for you is that if you do take that out or we take that out, how does it affect your work in terms of the two-way traffic?
If you take
the raised parking?
That actually, that would be most likely a benefit. I mean, the raised parking, the issue that relates to what I'm doing with the raised parking is that it takes more room than regular parking because people shy away from the bollards, then traffic shies away from the raised parking. So it gives us, let's call it, dead room. If we eliminate that, and I'm not saying I'm for it or against it, I'm giving you one aspect of removing the flex parking. One aspect which is positive is that you gain a little bit of room because now you can dedicate only 7 feet for parking and you don't need, let's say, 8, 9, or 10.
But you have to coordinate, whenever we do that, we have to work, together in terms of, if you're gonna, implement your plan and we're gonna take this out at some point, we have to make sure that everything syncs up, right?
Well, you don't have to. It makes sense. You could be more efficient and save money if you coordinate because you don't want to remove something and then come back and do work in the same area. So if we can do it all at once, at least in certain areas, I think that would be ideal. But I would tell you again, we don't have to. The two are not dependent on each other much, except that certain areas we may have to come back maybe and redo a curb here or a curb there.
And when do we find out about the expense?
The expense of what this is exploring, I would say in phase 2. Yep.
Okay, great.
Thank you
so much.
So it makes sense then, if I'm hearing this correctly, in order to be smart about it and not be as disruptive, is to do it probably all at the same time. If perchance we're going to switch to two-way, it would make sense to wait to lift the flex parking so it all gets done at one time.
Wait, I'm just gonna interrupt. You know that the last meeting we voted to take out flex parking. Do you know this?
I
Maurice?
did not know that.
Yeah, we did. We had a
Okay.
unanimous vote to take
not-
out flex parking. So I'm
Okay.
not really sure like where this line of questioning is
Yeah.
going, because I don't think anyone's voting at any time soon
No,
to go to
Okay.
two-way traffic.
no, well, we voted to do RFPs on it. So the question
Okay.
is,
We
does
did.
Just
of
coordination.
RFP?
Yeah, just, well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's a
That means
big,
it's happening.
that's
I
a
know.
big question. That's
Yeah,
a
well,
big
yeah.
question. I'm not really like, that's a big question because we voted to
Okay.
go
Yeah.
send an RFP out
We
to
did.
take out flex parking.
We did, and the last time they did that, it didn't work. So all I'm saying is that perchance, it could be something that's coordinated.
Oh,
That's all.
okay. I guess perchance that could happen.
Perchance.
I
That
mean,
would be
maybe the
ideal.
bids will come in wrong again.
Incorrectly, exactly.
Anything
Right.
could happen, I guess.
All right, I have a question, Maurice. When this, over here, hi. When this first came up, my very first question to Alex was, how could this happen without traffic lights at both gateways? Meaning at Douglas and where Essex Millburn meets. There's no way, if there are not traffic lights, when we know those are about $350,000 a piece. By the way, Alex has those traffic lights going up at White Oak Ridge Road, segue, but you can answer later. Um, Give you time to think. But there's no way this can happen without those two traffic lights. In my opinion, lived here a very long time, how would cars cross over? So before any of this can be a reality, and I think this is very high level thinking, this is multi-million-dollar project in my head, because you have to undo all of that concrete's in front of Bhakti Yoga. You cannot have two-way there with the way that's been narrowed. So this is a huge undertaking. But without all that, without two traffic lights, how do cars cross over unless you're remaking the entire town?
Okay, you may be right,
Oh, maybe.
but we're not, we-
I'm not an
we-
engineer.
we looked at it at this point
Mhm.
from the data we have. And, there are, national criteria we have to go through. So far, the mechanism we followed, the one that the county follows, didn't tell us you needed a traffic signal. But we may, as we move forward in this, we may say, you know what, even though it doesn't meet the criteria, it makes sense. There is nothing preventing us from putting a signal on the two ends.
How would cars coming now east on Essex, Essex goes west, coming east, possibly get onto Millburn Avenue to head where it was the Annie Says building without a traffic light? They
Well,
would be, unless you're putting foot circles in, which was, are you planning on putting circles in?
No, we have a certain geometry designed to do so.
Mhm.
And I didn't bring it with me, it's not in the presentation. But that question is going to be fully vetted when we do the conceptual design. Once we get to the conceptual design and we start actually drawing intersections, that's when we sit down and say, you know what, maybe we should put a traffic signal here. I'm just giving you the preliminary results that we got from the data we have.
Okay, and 78 and 24 are not going away. How can you say with surety that you would not be sending more cars into South Mountain section, which has been crunched from the whole complete streets fiasco? So these are things, this is like a really large conversation, and this seems like this is happening so fast. I don't know what your timing of phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 is. Are we talking 1 year, 2 years, 5 years? I mean, this is a huge thing to lay on the town and millions of dollars.
Well, I can't comment on the money because I haven't done the estimates. As far as schedule, it's your schedule, not mine.
So has the county sort of signed on already, you're saying?
We've had 2 meetings with the county
Mhm.
and they have,
The county, I think.
they know that we've talking about this
Mhm.
in this investigation. And so the idea was that, and we kind of talked about what the plan would be and how it would be implemented. And we talked that the next phase would be starting to create, to like do more part of the study of like looking at
Mhm.
it, and then to bring that out to public to get the public's reaction. So, and then we wouldn't even really have a plan, really, the conceptual or any kind of concept to present again to the public until 2022. So there's no rush.
Right, this
Nobody's
really
rushing it.
cannot be right. We saw what happened when something was rushed through this
There's
town.
nobody rushing thing. I think
Yeah.
it was just, we've been working on this now
Mhm.
since maybe April.
Mhm.
And the idea was to bring what we have, to have
Right.
this conversation, to say, all right, this came out of the vision plan. This was talked about. This was one of the big things that they said would be able to help, and has been talked about even previously before that, all coming back from the master plan reevaluation. So this is just continuing on the conversation. And now Maurice bringing us to say, hey, guys, this is where the work of the committee is right now. How do you guys feel about it? Like, and if you're all like, no, done, nobody's interested, then we'll stop. Because if none of you have any interest in pursuing this, then there's no point in doing it. I personally think that there's a lot of reason to keep pursuing it. And I think that I know that when we started the vision plan, the biggest thing was that we didn't just get a plan that we were going to shelve. So we had four things come out of the plan that we are slowly progressing. One of them being the Taylor Park, right, and Centray. One of them being looking at the area of need of redevelopment. One of them looking at the businesses, and then two-way traffic. So this is where we are with this.
Right, I understand. I just want to say that this is a really big, in my estimation, a big, big deal. And I think it shouldn't be rushed, and it has to be really carefully curated.
Add to this, because I'm also part of this committee, and unfortunately, the last meeting that I wasn't available to attend, but
Is your mic on, Sanjeev?
yes, it is on.
There we go.
Is it on now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but in this committee, when we think of it's a multi-million-dollar project, first of all, I would stay away from thinking that way, because it could be a 10-year project. It could be a 6-month project. It's on us, how we want to go with it. Where we think light, it could be a stop sign. Where we think we need to make the roads, we are already undoing the flex parking. It may be just a paint. I am not saying that it is going to be a cheap project, but if we need that two-way traffic, I think with one-way traffic is when traffic trickles down to a side lanes. If it's a two-way traffic, either people come there or they don't come there. So there are a lot to be thought through. Let's not task or ask questions right now where he may be pushed to give us a dollar amount and we stay away from it. I agree with Mayor, where we actually just continue with the study and see what comes out of it. I see where you're coming from. I think it's a very valid question, but I think we need to just give it some more time to really understand the project. Maurice, thank you so much for your presentation. It was amazing. Thank you, Mayor Bear. And Gaston, where is it? Thank
So
you.
I just want to make sure that everyone's feeling at least that.
I'm just putting out
aware
like
that-
in the long run, high, as you say, the high level look. It's a really, I think it's a huge project to be talking about. And I just don't know what your time frame was for this phase 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Like, are you looking to do this in a year or two?
We're in phase 1. We're taking it step by step by step by step,
Mhm.
and we're in phase 1. We may never get to phase 2.
It'll be everybody's
just
goal.
move-
It won't be just.
We're
one
just
person
moving
following.
along on phase 1. Like we're kind of moving along on everything else.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation and for all the work that you guys are putting into it, because it is a lot, and your expertise. Okay. I met with some amazing residents to fill the rec commission vacancy, and I hereby appoint Gregory Seth Berman to the Board of Recreation to the unexpired term of Frederick Layton as a regular member with the term expiration of December 31st, 2024. And this appointment shall take place immediately. And Mr. Berman, if you're on the line, thank you for serving. And if you're not, thank you for serving. The committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to any items listed on the consent agenda? Anyone? Nope. Okay. Are there any comments from the members of the public? Well, before I open up to members of the public for questions on the consent agenda. Just remember, tonight's a business meeting. Public comments are 3 minutes long. State your name and your address. You'll be given 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and then you will see 30 seconds left. And please be respectful of everybody's time tonight. So are there any members of the public that wish to make public comment? Oh, and please state the consent agenda item that you're referring to. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Feld from 11 Alexander Lane, Short Hills, New Jersey. Prior to this meeting, I sent you all a memo setting forth the resolution numbers and my questions. The first issue I really have is going to the bill list, which is Resolution 21-138. It is outrageous that no one's mentioned this letter, because on your bill list, there's a payment for the SID for $154,000. No one's mentioned a letter dated May 18, 2021 from the state denying your Main Street, New Jersey application. I've asked for this letter to be posted on your public website. It hasn't. There's questions as to why we're spending money on an entity whose validity is questioned by a lawsuit. Is an appointed board, is not elected. There's question whether there was buy-in or feasibility study. There's still a question whether our mayor had a conflict of interest about the 200 feet prohibition. Why are we running money in here? About 5 minutes ago, we heard questions about whether we rush things too fast. This was something that was rushed too fast. There's 3 elements here. One is whether you're going to still pay for administration for an entity that's probably invalid under law. That is invalid under law. Why you're paying money to litigate, to defend it rather than mediate it. And then when you lose the case, you're going to have to pay Civil Rights Act violation penalties and damages. Why are we doing this? As to the municipal attorney, a lot has changed in September. We now see how his fees are broken out. We now know why aren't we trying to recoup the $2 million that was paid to him in excess of his retention cap? There's serious questions. I am an attorney as about the quality of work provided to this town. There's questions about the SID, the restaurant ordinance. Let's go back to last September 1st, Black Lives Matter flag raising issues. Why did the insurance company says we need a Civil Rights Policy Act? The concealed rooftop decks at Chatham Road, which I think the whole community, especially in Glenwood, is outraged by the deceit, what was happening there. As to Perkins Eastman, there's a payment on them, but there's questions as to how they were retained and how they were given opportunities to renegotiate their contract several times. That needs to be investigated. The next resolution I have questions about is Resolution 21-157. This is the 3rd time this resolution, twice has been amended. Why don't we have encumbrances next to what we're giving to these contracts? Because if you look at the clause, it says that the qualified purchasing agent has unlimited discretion to enter into these contracts. For budgeting purposes, it'd be, I think, prudent that we have caps put down as to those amounts so we can monitor what's going on. As to Resolution 21-162, the Municipal Land Use Circuit Breaking Technical Review Committee, why are the same people always being appointed to these committees? Isn't it time to get new blood, maybe new thoughts into this
Thank
project?
you, Mr. Feld. Your time is up. Thank you.
I'll
very
see you
much.
later tonight.
Okay, good evening. Dominique Urso, 514 Millburn Avenue. Regarding the bill list, item 21-154, regarding the 154,000 being appointed to the SID, why would you be approving monies to an entity which its validity is in question by litigation? Why would you agree to litigate instead of mediating, which would be so much cheaper for the town? I don't understand why you wouldn't even consider that. What more do you need to prove that this entity is invalid? Number 1, you have no buy-in. Number 2, there was no feasibility study. Number 3, it was rushed. Number 4, you have no legal opinion. Number 5, you have a Main Street designation denial letter from May of 2018 that no one presented to the public. So I'd like to know again, why? Why? Why spend money just like it's an ATM machine out of nowhere? It's irresponsible. And notifying the public of the things that are happening. behind the closed door. Really, it is a closed door. Nothing? Nothing. I still have time, so this should be a dialogue. I'll stand up here until my time is up. I'm allotted 3 minutes. I don't think it's a joke. You're spending my parents' tax-paying money very irresponsibly when they work very hard for it for 30 years in this town. Sad. And we're up here every week and you look at me and you thank us for your time and you really don't care. You show that. You show it right now. You're looking at me and you refuse to say anything. These are questions. We have the right to know. And I'm respectful every week. And this is what I get. Crickets. Crickets from everyone. That's it? This is embarrassing. People are watching you. This is it. That's it? Is that a joke? That's a joke? You're township officials. Wow, I could do this too with my head like this. I could do it during my public comment too. So thank you.
Would anybody else like to make a public comment on the consent agenda? And please remember that we have a procedure. So this is public comment, not public dialogue. And at the end, we will answer or we will respond to your questions and your comments. Thank you.
That's the problem. Nancy Stone, 266 Essex Street. That's the issue. We don't get the response because you don't even, this one walked out, which, you know, we should be walking out on all of you, but we'll get to do that in November. We went from a $70,000 SID director that you trashed for more than a year to an $85,000 director that quit smart, to a $105,000 director that now you're funding $150,000 to pay for his salary out of our money. Like, you got like a PhD. People have dough. It's our dough. We earn that money that you are spending wastefully on an organization that the state told you that they wouldn't give you your Main Street program because you didn't have a 501c3, because we've been asking for it for 6 months. And for 6 months, it doesn't take that long because Flag got their 501c3 during the pandemic. And that's why they got the $200,000 grant, because Explore was supposed to get the grant and they didn't have a 501c3. So they had to turn it over to Flag in order to take advantage of that money that the state gave, and they gave it to the restaurants in town. It's embarrassing. They haven't done anything other than Millburn Live, rent a few bags, rah, 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 downtown. I personally have been fighting the SID from the beginning because I was looking to buy properties in town and I refused to look at those properties until we figure this out. This is a dead-end situation. It's a dead-end situation. It is unacceptable that you are continuing to vote. All of you are voting, including you, Diane, that you reversed your decision because of maybe peer pressure. I don't know. I didn't know you that way, but clearly that could be taken that way, because why you would vote for something that's an illegal entity and being litigated against is shameful. It's absolutely shameful. And for you to put your name on it and your rubber stamp on it, and for you to keep endorsing it, is shameful on you, because you know before anybody else what went on with the previous organization. And now you went from bad to horrible, horrible. And you should be embarrassed with the direction that you took this $150,000 that you're gifting to this organization, to this illegal organization. Embarrassing.
Jean Pasternak, 342 Hobart Avenue. I'd like to comment on 21-154, the bills list. I concur with all the comments imploring you not to transfer $154,000 of taxpayers' trust fund monies to the SID. The state has made its position clear. The Millburn SID does not comply with its regulations for Main Street designation, a predicate for approval. Mr. Grillo's and Deputy Mayor Wasserman's spin on the denial, citing the delay obtaining the 501 nonprofit status as the sole reason, is a half-truth and part of a big lie by this TC. Read the May 18th letter from the state. Quote, "We are currently developing a developing Main Street program aimed at preparing districts for designation, and we will reach out to you with information about this program in the coming months." The message is clear. Start over and follow the law. On May 7th, Attorney Ryan Cooper for the SID wrote in an email to me, "As for the questions regarding the SID and your retention, I'm not aware of any written opinion by counsel on these subjects. No attorney will write an opinion about this illegally formed SID." Superior Court Law Division Judge Moore made clear in the hearing that we listened to, the Bear Properties lawsuit contesting the SID's validity. He said it should be mediated. Instead, each member of this TC stubbornly agreed to litigate in the face of his advice. You're wasting our money, transferring funds, and litigating a losing case. Mayor Prupus, Deputy Mayor Wasserman, and former Mayor Lieberberg did the wrong thing, voting this in. Former Mayor Eglo, Mayors Eglo and Burstein did not concur at that time. Do the right thing, rescind it tonight. On another subject, the payments to Marziti Falcon need to end. These monies need to be set aside in escrow. We are entitled to competent legal counsel and we're not getting it. He was overpaid by $2 million without a change order since 2013. He prohibited the public from seeing bill lists for years. He oversaw the debacle of the SID's illegal formation, and he hid the 85 Woodland rooftop decks from the public, not to mention the restaurant zoning ordinance mess. Then there's the matter of the Oprah request. Here's my exhibit. Since I can't screen share, I'll do it this way. I get Oprah requests that are unanswered, never answered, obfuscated. In addition to still not getting the records supporting the legal presentation made last January, recently I made an Oprah request for all written communications about Main Street, New Jersey. And I got nothing. Here's what I got from the same request from the state. You'll see these documents right here. How is it that I can get them from the state but not from my own township? Finally, I have a question with regard to 21-163. When you do get a fair share settlement, what are your plans to explain this settlement agreement to the public, and certainly with more than a week's notice, so that transparent, open, robust dialogue will occur with this community? Thank you. Just leave that there so you can have a quick look, okay? That's what I got from the state, not from you guys. Thank you.
Am I being given a chance to present?
Yes, Mr. Sachs.
Okay, my name is Stephen Sachs. I'm from 66 Clinton Avenue, and I will apologize in advance. The reason I want to speak for a moment is that the discussion that was held earlier regarding the vision and the roads ignored a letter that I sent to the township.
I'm going to interrupt you because this is for consent agenda items only, and you will have an opportunity to speak at the end of the meeting during public comment about what.
Thank you. I did not realize that, and
All is well. All is well. Thank you. Okay. Would any of the committee members like to address any of the comments or questions that were made during public comment on the consent agenda items?
Well, I'm going to put myself out there and say something. Ms. Pasternak, you use the expression, the big lie. That is really problematic to use in our township committee setting. You all come here every week and you attack various people for what you're not happy with, but to use the expression, the big lie, I find that really offensive.
Okay, I'm gonna ask that everybody please remain calm in the room. if you disrupt the meeting, because right now if you're speaking, so Ms. Urso, you're disrupting the meeting. If you don't stop disrupting the meeting. Okay, Ms. Urso, I'm gonna ask you again, if you continue calling out, I'm going to have, okay. So I'm gonna take a 5-minute recess. Mr. McDonald, thank you.
Congratulations. Yeah, we're building a beautiful. Oh, you were, okay. No, we just want to see the presentation. About 5 months, whatever that means, right? Dual, but yeah, no, it's. So is that my first one? Yep. That's all we get. So it's just Rose Hill. And so I said roads. Kind of now everything. But it's good. So no, let's take the rest of that. Gotta become before sunshine. Such a learning.
I think easier marching in the rain. It's all good.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
You're at the point of
okay, we
voting
will
on the
wait
consent.
for Committeeman Vignaya. All right, so do any other committee members have any comments that they would like to say? And please remember that there is no yelling out from the crowd. If you disrupt the meeting, I will let you know you're disrupting the meeting. If I give you three, or if I have to say you're disrupting the meeting 3 times, you will be asked to leave. And one other thing, like we're all here, we all live in a very privileged community, and we all love this town, and we all are here because we want to serve and we want to contribute to our community. So let's just remember that, like we're neighbors. So with that, yes.
Thank you, Mayor. And that's a good point. We are all neighbors. We all love the town. We're all doing what we can for the town. But I do want to address some of the comments that were made. You know, we decided to form another SID in part because of our high vacancy rate, the double-digit vacancy rate, and this is a fact. It's a fact. And like many of our adjoining towns, like Summit and many of the other towns, they do have SIDs, and they use their SIDs very effectively. Many of our neighboring towns have vacancy rates of 5%. Ours is over 15%. And if we don't address it, if we do not address our vacancy rate, then it falls on our residents to pay for it. You know, because people will appeal their taxes, and this is one of the reasons to have a SID. The other thing I want to make a point of is that our volunteers that serve on the SID work very tirelessly on behalf of the township. You know, and you made everybody, the people that are object to the SID, they also are dumping on our volunteers, and it's not right. It's not right, because our volunteers are working very hard for the businesses in the town, whether you agree or whether you don't agree. The other thing I want to point out with the Main Street designation, we decided to spearhead the Main Street designation because that would open the town up for potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars of grants and technical assistance and a coordinator that would that would make available grants that we could apply for that we can't right now because we don't have that designation. And that was the reason that we decided to apply for that designation. So, and I will say that our objectors that are in the audience, they wrote into Trenton. To object to it.
Please, Mr. All right, you're disrupting the meeting. Please stop.
Oh.
How dare you say that?
So you can,
I didn't say you didn't have a right. I said that you wrote it.
All right.
I didn't say that.
Please.
You did imply it.
oh, wow.
All right.
So public has full right to disrespect the officials, and we as residents do not have any right?
So
unbelievable.
Okay, let's all just like bring this down a notch, a tone. All right, we are all neighbors. We are all neighbors, and there's no reason for this to be so elevated or so intense. So everyone just like take a breath. Okay. Deputy Mayor Wasserman, are you done with your response?
I just wanted to say that, it's just sad. I mean, I feel sad that people, that we're not working, I know, listen, everybody has a point of view. I think everybody in general means well, but, we're trying to get grants for our businesses, for our residents, for green spaces. This is all done with a good heart. And to be, for the record, everybody has the right to say whatever they want. I mean, they can write in or whatever. I mean, that's their right. But I'm just saying that when you write in to object to grants for designation for this township, that's hurting us. It's hurtful to the town. And I just want to say that that's my opinion. And as an elected official, I just wanted to make that clear.
So I have a follow-up comment on that. Main Street versus SID. If the Main Street application is denied, Does that mean SID cannot exist?
Has nothing to do. with
Nothing to do with that. And Main Street got declined because it was not registered as 501c
Yeah.
that we are in the process of applying.
We applied, let me be very clear, committeeman. We applied for the 501c3 on December 16th, okay? And we had every expectation that we would get the 501c3 back from the IRS in a timely manner. As it turns out, they are backlogged, and we know factually that they're backlogged for months, and we didn't get it back in time. And we were declined specifically because it wasn't in place when we put our application in. So we had every expectation that it would be approved in time for our Main Street application. So I want to make that clear.
And just so I understand, if things stays the same, and once we get the 501c registered, we're going to apply again for Main Street. Oh, we can apply for Main Street again?
We absolutely can apply again, and we've been invited by the state. The same letter invited us to apply again.
I hope everybody on the videotape also is hearing this and not just hearing the question and the allegation that has been put on. So they understand the same questions keep coming up. Even if they get answers back, there's furthermore questions. I tried to see that myself. As an outsider, I came in for the first time, and I thought every question is a right question and a good question. I'm at a point now where I see the question coming from the same people, and I feel really the same question and the same people, even though we try to answer them back, they still don't care. All they care about is come here and ask questions on the same line where 5 of us,
Please
there's
stop
a
speaking
unanimous
out for the
vote.
crowd.
There's
Right.
a un.
One
Sorry.
second. Ms. Stone, you're disrupting the meeting by speaking out. Wait, this isn't a conversation.
I'm not having a conversation.
Please stop
Now we're not
speaking
talking.
out. Thank
I'm
you.
not speaking out. I'm just acknowledging what he's saying. Yes, nodding my head. I haven't said a word. You're the one who started the conversation.
That was one warning. Thank you.
Thank you.
So 5 of us here, we have been talking about last year, 3-member voted for SID. 5 of us here, all 5 of us have voted on the budget for SID for this year. So you know where everyone lies. We want to bring back business. We want to bring them back in their valuation, so they can also pay their fair share by earning good money too. So residents are not always bearing the brunt. So I don't know why, as a resident, I did not understand that earlier. And I've never been against it. There was allegation made last or a couple months ago that I was against it. I wrote article against it. That was all for it. If you read it clearly, you will understand my article clearly. So stop putting those allegations. Litigation versus mediation. All 5 of us, again, unanimously has said, go litigate and do not mediate. Where we feel, or at least I feel, my vote will lie there. And I have clearly said, I would like to litigate. Everyone else has said litigate. So I think we have made up our mind by thinking in our own way. And if there are other people who are talking about this too, we would have also listened to them as well. I will put my resident first. If I feel strongly about something and there are hundreds of other residents saying something about it, either I will sit down with them and change my thought process, or I'll try to make them think in the same way, or will agree to disagree, but I will listen to them. There are only those few folks that keep coming in here and saying the same thing over and over. This is a waste of time for you as well as us. Thank you.
Okay. Does any other members of the committee or our professional staff want to address any of the comments or questions made during consent agenda public comment?
One quick one.
Yes.
This may seem like a small point, but I've addressed it a number of times. I and my firm seem to have been somehow implicated in withholding information from the public about the rooftop decks on the Silverman project. As I made clear the first time that this was brought up by Mr. Cosgrove when he called in to raise questions about that, I had never seen the plans that were submitted to the planning board. I have not to this day ever seen the plans that were submitted to the planning board. And that whole matter about the rooftop decks was left to the planning board for them to decide based upon the application presented to them. I did not withhold a single thing. Thank you.
McDonald's?
Yes, just a few points. One is, and this was explained when the civil rights resolution was adopted. That resolution was adopted because it is a model policy issued to us by our insurance fund to pass. There's no, that is the reason that we put that in front of the township committee. The other thing that I would like to address is that there are several SIDs or special improvement districts that operate without a 501c3. We have opted to apply for a 501c3, and we did that during November, December. And I think one of the points that was made was that Flag got it quickly. And I think we can all understand that during a pandemic, a nonprofit organization looking to help out first responders and frontline workers will probably get a 501c3 designation very quickly because of the mission that they're approaching. But that being said, there are other SIDs that operate without a 501c3, including Westfield, including Summit, because those organizations had to piggyback on 501c3s to go through a donation program to help out their businesses. We have taken the added step to apply for a 501c3, or the SID has taken that added step so that they can operate in that way on their own. I just want to make that very clear.
Any other comments from anyone? I have one. Yes.
I do. It was brought up about the settlement agreement. And Mr. Falcon, I just want to be crystal clear about this. As much as we'd love to be able to talk about the settle agreement and the mediation, we've been ordered by the judge not to. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. During the course of the mediation, the judge has made it absolutely abundantly clear that the participants in the mediations are not to discuss it. I think what Ms. Pasternak was addressing is that if a settlement agreement is achieved, that there will be a public discussion of what is contained in that settlement agreement. If she meant other than that, no, we can't talk about that now.
And the continuation, one last thing, the continuation of you making $2 million over the last 8 years. Can you just address that a little bit for the, every time we pick up something or hear about it, it's always this $2 million that your law firm has billed us, as it were, over the past 8 or 10 years. And in addition to representing us here, other parts of your firm as well represent us in historic. Is there any place, and in litigation with the something like the Exxon and other places? So I just think we need to address that, because otherwise people think that you're overcharging us $2 million. And this is something that's been since 2013. Is that correct? And did Mr.
No.
McDonald not give us a whole report about that?
I'm not sure
Mr.
how that
Falcon,
number was
before you
calculated.
go there, Mr. Falcon, may I just say something on that? So we had a presentation just on legal, and we did that all the way down from 2013. This is to be transparent. This is because I wanted to understand it. I understood it first, and then we made that presentation to the entire resident. And this would be somewhere in March or April. January. Okay. You can go back, and that presentation is online. Just in the abundance, clearance, and transparency, when we shared that information, this is the information that come back from that presentation, that you have made this much, you have made that much. I've kind of seen on an average, it's about $600,000, which for a town is high. Why is it high? Because our own people keep litigating the township. Okay, so we have to fight there, and that's the money Mr. Falcon's company charges hourly. So if there is an hourly going above that because of the litigation, and one of the case that we just said, we're going to litigate versus mediate, that is going to be charged again. Where we are making a conscious decision, we are going to pay for it. Other towns I've seen, it is in few $100,000s a year. Ours is a little higher, and we're working on, there are different things that there's a retention. We can include some in retention, and I'm working, we are actually, Mr. Wasserman and I are working with our business administrator to make our process even robust. and what will be the next year contract. But as long as the litigation keeps coming in and we are going to fight that litigation, that charges we will have to pay, and we will pay. That is to win or lose, or at least try to win a case.
So Committeeman Benayak, you're saying a good portion of the money that we're spending with our attorneys is because we're getting sued by people that live in town?
One is litigation. Second one is Oprah. We are getting a lot of Oprahs extra. And that's where there was comment made why our names are on Oprah. When you keep asking questions and we keep answering or taking advice from our legal attorney on answering that question, because this is not a straightforward question. I've seen those questions myself too. I wouldn't want to answer just in one line myself. I would want to get a legal opinion or anything legal that we want to get, which is outside the retention plan. We will have to pay hourly. So there are studies done and come back and answer those questions in the right way. So when there's a legal, and I know legal no one likes, yeah, and I would also like to bring our legal fees down. But in order to do a greater good, we really need to pay that amount. What you pay, what is what you get. So yes, there's always process improvement, always out there, always room for improvement. But in the last 7 to 8 years, 2013 is what we went to. On an average, we have paid $600,000 a year. That's what that presentation showed. And you can go back to that presentation. So it's not that 1 year we paid too much or 1 year we paid less. And whatever we pay to this company, it's all accounted for. I mean, as I said, room for improvement is always there, but we are paying what we know we are paying. It's not that he's stealing money or taking away himself. Sorry, Mr. Falcon, now you can answer that
Well,
question.
that's all right. I really don't think I need to add much to that. Our services are responsive to the needs of the township. The township asks us to provide services. We do. We send a bill, it gets paid.
Thank you.
Nothing
I've
more to add.
spent more time on the township committee than my regular work, and I'm not complaining about this because I feel passionate about this. It's my duty. If I got a chance, I want to make sure I'm all in. But wherever, however I found it, I found it to be a very, very good township. So thank you all for your service. I wasn't here last year, but I understand you guys right now. Thank you, Mr. Falcon, for your service too.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Falcon. Do you want to say anything?
Okay,
Okay. I would just like to say that as far as I can see in this moment, there are two businesses opposing the SID. So that is what I am aware of that are actively voicing their opposition to the SID. And I just wanted to put that out there. And that there are many businesses that are participating in all of the SID activities and all the events and the social media. And we're happy to have them. So, okay. May I have a motion to approve resolution 21-154 through resolution 21-163, which are listed on the consent agenda?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
A roll call vote, please.
Ms. Miggins,
Yes.
Ms. Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, Mr. McDonald, you have something to say about this next ordinance before Mr. Wasserman, Deputy Mayor Wasserman presents?
Yes, Mayor. Ordinance 2574-21 is being reintroduced. This is the capital ordinance by the township in the amount of approximately $1.6 million for capital improvements, various capital improvements. The reason that this is being reintroduced is, again, a noticing error by the item of Millburn Short Hills in which this ordinance was published in the Montclair Times. So therefore, since it was after introduction, public noticed in the wrong way, the adoption of that was invalidated. We need to reintroduce that ordinance. So just to be clear, this was never finalized. No money has been spent out of this ordinance, which is why we need to reintroduce it.
Okay, so procedurally, we'll do it again. I'd like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2574-21, capital ordinance of the Township of Millburn of the County of Essex, New Jersey, authorizing the making of various public improvements and acquisitions in, by, and for the township appropriating therefore a sum of $1,624,700 and providing that such sum so appropriated shall be raised from capital improvement fund of the township. So as what Alex just said, this is kind of a do-over. And all of and this capital money is spent for the township.
Okay, may I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Miggins,
Yes.
Ms. Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus,
Yes. Thank you. Committeewoman Eglo will now present ordinance 2579
Thank you. I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2579-21. Bond ordinance to authorize the making of various public improvements in, by, and for the Township of Millburn in the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $855,000 to pay the cost thereof, to make a down payment or fully fund an appropriation from the Capital Improvement Fund, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds. And Alex, this also looks like it's for just a lot of things around town.
Yes,
Grants
Committeewoman. This is for and keep in mind that the bond ordinance authorizes funds. It does not spend funds. This allows us to make sure that a granting entity knows that we are committed to the project and being able to authorize those funds, or whether there are projects that are being done through a potential bond ordinance. But this bond ordinance is the 9/11 memorial, which is intended to be funded by donation. The DOT grant for Short Hills Avenue, which is intended to be funded through a grant from DOT, and also the Flex Park.
So just like our homes, it's a lot of money to run a town and keep things going. So I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing on final passage on Tuesday, June 15, 2021.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Miggins,
Yes.
Ms. Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak, Mayor Prupus.
Yes.
Thank you.
Committeewoman Miggins will now present ordinance 2580-21.
So I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2580-21. This is an ordinance supplementing Chapter 3 of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Millburn to include certain retail food establishment noises in the enumerated prohibited noises. Mr. McDonald, do you want to explain that for everyone?
Sure. There's a section of the code, general code of the Township of Millburn, that has several enumerations for noises. This ordinance, in an attempt to continue to address various items, such as the road ordinance that was introduced at the last meeting regarding restaurants, enumerates restaurant and restaurant noise and certain hours for prohibiting that noise under the general code. Therefore, can be enforced by the code enforcement officer or police officers.
I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, July 13th, 2021.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Miggins,
Yes.
Ms. Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is ordinance 2576-21, and as previously stated, the consideration of this ordinance has been delayed due to noticing errors with the item of Millburn and Short Hills. And accordingly, I move that the second reading and public hearing on this ordinance be adjourned to the Township Committee meeting of June 15th, 2021. May I have a second? Second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Miggins,
Yes.
Ms. Del Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak, Mayor Prupus. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is ordinance 2577-21, and as previously stated, the consideration of this ordinance has been delayed due to noticing errors with the item of Millburn and Short Hills, and accordingly, I move that the second reading of public hearing on this ordinance be adjourned to the Township Committee meeting of June 15th, 2020. May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Miggins,
Abstain.
Ms. Del Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus.
Yes.
Thank you.
I present for consideration an ordinance entitled Ordinance Number 2575-21, Ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 7 Traffic Section 7-25 Bus Stops of the Revised General Ordinance of the Township of Millburn. So the purpose of this ordinance is to relocate the bus stop on Main Street near the southwest corner of Millburn Avenue to the northwest corner of Main Street and Taylor Street for improved safety to motorists, bicyclists, and bus passengers while traveling into the Township of Millburn. This would be accomplished by providing an improved location with ample space for ingress and egress of the omnibus vehicles dropping off and picking up passengers. Relocation of the bus stop to this nearby location would also assist in preventing congestion of traffic at the corner of Millburn Avenue and Main Street, where the bus currently has difficulty completely pulling into the designated area, impeding the flow of traffic. Tonight is the set time for public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law. I declare the hearing open. I declare the hearing closed. I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with the law. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Miggins,
Yes.
Ms. Del Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, tonight under old business, we are first going to talk about the JFK Parkway cell tower possibility. Mr. McDonald, do you have some information to share with us tonight?
Yes, I had previously shared with the Township Committee a conceptual CAD drawing of the JFK site, which is where the township currently holds and turns and then gets rid of its leaf composting piles. That JFK site is has about approximately 5.5 buildable acres. And I was asked to take a look at whether a variety of uses would fit on that particular space. I've shared that CAD drawing with the Township Committee that indicates that parking a 110-yard by 60-yard soccer field, several of the dump or recycling containers, as well as a salt dome and a cell tower could potentially fit on that piece of property. Certainly there's other things that would need to be explored in that, but from a space perspective, those items can fit. We would have to do a little bit more investigation into some of the constraints and whether they apply to areas that are already disturbed, and also if there were any permitting that would be required. But from a space perspective, it looks like it all can fit up there and quite comfortably too, actually.
That's good news, right? That's good news, everyone. Good news. Good news. Good news. All right. So now that can all somewhat be configured, does anyone want to make any suggestions about? Does anyone have any feelings they want to share? Comments, thoughts, questions?
I know where you're getting to, but when can we fit the field there? No, I'm good with all three. I think that's a great idea. As far as the field goes, I don't want us to confuse to put a turf field there because we know how expensive it is. So ideally, I want to just make sure that is dedicated to the field, and it's going to go to the Board of Rec, that part of the field, and we take slowly where we can have a grass field first and then move on when we have money to put in turf. It could be a slow project, but we would like to make sure we dedicate one more field towards the township, because I think they're lacking that. But thank you. Good job there, Mr. McDonald.
I would just like to add one other sort of caveat to this conversation is that certainly one of the things that goes on up there is the decomposition of the township's leaves, which we collect in the fall in a schedule that takes 3 months, and which hits every zone section of the township 3 times. This is something that we would have to investigate from an operations standpoint in order to see how we would do that differently. If it is a desire of the committee to start moving forward with some of these moves and changes to JFK. So I think the first idea here was, can it even all fit? And so we've got that answer. And I think it's important that now we look at the operational perspective of that, and then also start investigating whether there's anything further that we would need to have from DEP or anything like that. But certainly, again, from a space perspective, we've got the room up there.
Let me just ask you one question. Would you have to put another road for access? Like, how would you access up to there?
So it's a really good question, Committeewoman. The fact is that the right now the property is accessible from Parsonage Hill Road, and you use Parsonage Hill Road onto JFK, and you can turn into the property. But when you come out of the property, you would have to turn right and head towards the Short Hills Mall. At that point, you could look to turn around, or you could proceed, and onto 24 or 124 or whatever. There could be further discussion about access to that particular property and whether there's additional access that can be gained. Do I think that for the uses that would be up there, that is a deal breaker? No. I think that, in terms of a soccer field or a sports playing field and the dump and stuff like that, I think that the utilization of that is infrequent enough that that access is not necessarily a priority in making that change, but it is something I think would have to continue to be investigated and looked at.
And lastly, we all know JFK floods. I'm not sure where it floods, because when it floods, it's closed. So,
Yeah, it actually floods down closer to the New Jersey American Water Plant.
so that wouldn't affect this.
Correct.
Good, excellent.
You want to play soccer there?
I do not play soccer.
All right, so that's good news. Okay. Done with that. Old business zoning accessory use revisions.
So that's the one, the loading and unloading of move-in and move-outs on premises for multifamily home, and also no to rooftop deck on all the multifamily homes. What is
Yes. So I do apologize to the committee. I wanted to have a draft to you prior to tonight's meeting. However, I'm still working with the township's planner, Paul Phillips, to make sure that we address in particular the loading and unloading correctly, that we can make sure that we are accomplishing the goals of Committeeman Benayak and the rest of the committee. In terms of the prohibition of rooftop decks, I think it's an easier discussion or insertion into the zoning code. However, loading and unloading is a little bit more complex when you're talking about the redevelopment of properties and how that would work. In particular, I think that the distinction that it has to be on premise and not necessarily within is very important. And I just want to make that clarification here tonight, so that as we continue to work on this, that the committee is amenable to the loading and unloading being on site, not necessarily within. In other words, in a parking garage or any sort of garage structure, as long as it's on the property.
yes, it could be an open inside, it could be under in the garage, it could be wherever. They're not using the public right of way for loading and unloading, for especially move in and move outs, and they're there for hours.
Right. Okay. Good. So again, I will continue to work with Paul Phillips, the township's planner, and making this happy to happen, to have a draft to the township committee in short order. And I do apologize.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So, Mr. McDonald, this reminds me of something that we did not discuss to report on, but about the work of you and Bethsal and Mr. Mariziti and can you talk about the public
Sure,
engagement that's
sure.
going to occur in the next 2 weeks?
Yes. So, Joe Mariziti of Mariziti Falcon, the township's law firm, as well as Beth Zoll, the planning board chair, who also sits on the redevelopment plan review subcommittee. We are looking to set up some public engagement and information sessions regarding redevelopment in general and what a redevelopment area is and what the redevelopment study is, so that we can continue to provide insight and education to the public about what exactly all that means, what steps go into it, what it means for the township to have an area designated at this time. And so we are looking to set up those public engagement sessions for an evening, a weekend, and a lunch within the next 2 weeks. And so we'll be communicating those. I actually was exchanging emails prior to the meeting tonight. Hopefully sometime tomorrow, we'll start to communicate some of those sessions.
Great. Okay, does any other committee member have anything under old business they'd like to discuss? Nope. Okay, new business. Mr. Vinyayak, would you like to talk about the general code updates, alcohol and cannabis on township streets?
I actually don't know about it.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Mr. McDonald, do you know about this?
I do, yes. So, and it was, I mean, this is regarding, now that cannabis is legal, it's looking to address the public consumption of that. Obviously, the ability to partake in your own private property or yard or things like that. I think the concern is just like the same concern with alcohol, people walking down the street, consuming it, smoking it, whatever it might be. This ordinance would look to address that on the township's public streets.
Can I ask you a question?
Thank
Would
you.
it be the same thing as smoking cigarettes?
So smoking cigarettes are not illegal on walking down the sidewalk. But smoking cigarettes is prohibited in township parks, as well as within a certain footage of or distance to public buildings. However, this would differ in that it would be treated much the same way as the consumption of alcohol. You can't open public carry and drink alcohol out on the streets. Same thing for smoking a joint or some other form of cannabis wouldn't be allowed on public sidewalks and stuff like that.
And are there, I'm sure, model ordinances from other towns would make this fairly easy, or would you be inventing this? Well, not you.
Yeah. So I think if you're modeling it very similarly to alcohol, because it's a legal substance, however, it's not legal to consume it on public streets.
What about the carve out for medical? If somebody has a medical marijuana card and you see them smoking marijuana on the street, you can't do anything, right?
Correct.
No, so they're still not allowed to smoke on the public place. They can
Medical?
go
You
home
would
and do it.
Medical?
No, I think you'd be surprised in the way that that has been challenged. So I think it's probably best to avoid that.
No, so I would like to get more information. If you
Sure,
have it, please
sure.
Forward it to me and we can look in that as well.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
The attorney in my office,
You good?
the attorney in my office has drafted this ordinance. I've reviewed it and made a couple of changes, but basically it relies upon the provisions of the recently adopted Cannabis Regulatory Enforcement Assistance and Marketplace Modernization Act, which by its terms is tied to the New Jersey Smoke-Free Air Act and allows for regulations which may be developed by municipalities, which are more rigid than the act itself proclaims. And that's what you would be doing in connection with this. We'll be able to get this ordinance out to you in short order and can explain in a memo the basis upon which it's been developed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's what I'm referring to.
Does any committee member have any items of new business to address tonight? Okay, public comment. When invited to speak, please come to the lectern and clearly state your name and address and speak loudly so that your comments may be understood by all and properly recorded. There was a properly noticed remote option for those who could not attend the meeting in person. And you can raise your hand on Zoom. And let's please respect the time limit and remember that we are all neighbors.
Well, let that guy Steven go.
Yes, let's start with Mr. Sachs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Stephen Sachs. I live at 66 Clinton Avenue. And I first want to thank the town committee, its chairman, Mr. McDonald, and the people working for the town for their excellent efforts. I have been a resident for 30 years, and I recently sent in about 2 weeks ago today a letter raising questions in connection with the Mazer traffic impact study, kind of the two-way street traffic analysis that we heard a presentation about tonight. This letter was copied to the mayor, I think the deputy mayor, and Mr. Veniak. I did not have the email address of the other township members, and I request that they, township committee members, I request the letter be provided to them, by the way, Mr. McDonald, if we can. Today, I followed up because I had not heard anything, and several employees of the town were very nice, including Mr. McDonald, letting me know that these issues would be thought about in the longer term. My concern, the questions I raise, particularly focus on the fact that the proposed change from one-way traffic to two-way traffic would result in single lanes in each direction, and raises concerns in my mind, especially when we're trying to preserve businesses, and businesses have borne the brunt of the prior mistakes of prior administrations on redesigning the downtown area. And as we heard today, the purpose of much of this is to improve the businesses and the rental structures, that they would be adversely impacted in a number of ways. Because, for example, and I point out in my questions about the issues of deliveries, the issues of people stopping and grabbing, the issues of emergency traffic, the issues of, I know you want to slow traffic, but sometimes you get people who are human turtles who slow it beyond what anyone expects. The issues if you have emergencies, that having a single lane in each direction would basically shut down the traffic structure and throw a lot of traffic in the South Mountain area. The reason I raise this today is because I'm concerned that we heard an urging to continue the process forward and incur more funds by an engineering firm, which obviously has an interest in continuing the process forward, on expenditure and the various consultants. And I think that these are gating issues, truly gating issues, despite all the good intentions, that given the limited amount of east-west traffic options and what we saw in the traffic in the weather storm, the snowstorm about 2 years ago, and everything shut down for 4 or 5 hours. We really, I think, owe it to everybody in town, including the businessmen, to consider these type of issues before we go spending a lot of taxpayer money on a concept which will create its own momentum for further spending the deeper we go. So I would encourage and request that Township Committee look at the letter I sent, and that this be evaluated as far as how these questions be considered and thought of and addressed prior to a significantly deeper spend in this area.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. I just want to also reiterate the procedure of public comment, that when you were making your public comment, you're making a public comment, and then once public comment's over, the Township Committee and the professionals will respond to your questions and comments. Okay, let's just go down the line and take some calls. Zoom.
Hello, can you hear me?
Ken,
Good evening. Thank you, Dave Cosgrove, 99 Oakview. I had 2 comments. The first is on the proposed noise ordinance, which is 2580-21. And when I review it, there's 2 problems I see with it. One is the current ordinance talks about the noise threshold being measured at 50 feet. outside of the area. This new one says 100 feet, and I really think it should be 50. It should be consistent with the existing ordinance. 100 feet is an awful, long ways. There's no real reason for it to be 100 feet. The old ordinance also, which is 3-7.2, talks about the noise being, quote, plainly audible. The new ordinance talks about the noise being, give me one second, clearly audible. And I'm wondering why, I'm going to assume this was drafted by council, but I'm wondering why the language, the selection of those two words was changed. And then the last comment I have is on the reports on the fair share litigation. And what I hear, meeting after meeting is that, well, there's mediation and we can't talk about anything. We know that a settlement was proposed and drafted and sent to the town over 2 months ago by the fair share folks. And what I'd like to stress is that there's no doubt in my mind, and I am a practicing attorney in New Jersey, there's no doubt in my mind that if you folks wanted to, you could direct your counsel in the case to make an application orally to the judge at the next conference saying that you wanted to provide a more robust update. There's no doubt that can be done. So again, as I've commented before in the past, it's really not a question of a minimum that I'd like from the township. I'd like the township to go a little above and beyond and actually look to try to make a presentation that gives us some details. So when we do see the settlement agreement, it's not like what happened in the Woodland application where it was a done deal and there was nothing changed by the time the residents saw it. Thank you very much, folks. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Sarah Sherman, South Mountain Civic Association. I would like to mention that once a year, our group meets with Mr. McDonald to update us on the township's storm preparedness. And so as the 2021 hurricane season begins today, a few weeks ago, we met with Mr. McDonald and the OEM team, Fire Chief Echeverria, Captain Blazinski, Captain Beatty, and Mr. Doty, to discuss the township's readiness in the event of a storm. Now, as you know, our group has been working for 10 years plus on a flood mitigation plan for the region. And I have to say that in the last year, we have made considerable progress. We're very excited about that. We're very hopeful that we're very close to something that's actually going to happen. But I want to thank the township and say that we feel reassured that in the event of a storm event, that the township is prepared if needed. And let's hope for the best. And we hope we will not need extreme measures in a flooding event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I have a couple of comments to make about the traffic circulation plan. First one is pretty much inconsequential, but I think the original two-way street system went to one-ways in the late 50s, early 60s, not the 40s. My father came in 49. It was still two ways when he got here. Also, most of the towns that, if not all of them, that Maurice mentioned that were going to two-way traffic, all those towns have multiple ways to go through the town on main roads rather than residential neighborhoods, whereas Millburn has one north-south artery and one east and one west bound roadway. So to compare Millburn to the other towns, not that it might not be doable, that just in the fact that of saying that other towns are doing it doesn't mean that it works everywhere. As far as, I'm only going to make a brief comment about the SID, but it's not actually about the SID. It's a reason that I've heard expressed about the vacancies. Several days before the vote to create this SID, I was asked to meet with the then Mayor Liebersberg and Committeeman Wasserman. I thought and was led to believe that it was to try and take a last ditch effort to get my support for the SID, but it wasn't. They wanted to get inside the building to see what was going on. And I had no problem with that, but I was kind of appalled that when I called them to let them know, I needed to know how long the appointment was going to be to discuss. It was supposed to take place in town hall. Then they wanted to come down to the building. My mother has had health issues, and I explained to them, I'd be more than happy to stop down, I, stay there 15, 20 minutes and then leave. They were very demanding about getting into the building. I spoke to a couple of other property owners to ask if they were ever confronted like that. And I won't use the language, but they told me what I should tell them. But having nothing to hide, we met in the building. I showed them around the building. I also showed them outside. Now, there's been a situation. If you're concerned about vacancies, there are dumpsters surrounding my building like an anklet. I showed that to the two of them. And I've also showed it to Mr. McDonald. He's aware of it. We've been emailing now for maybe at least, I think maybe from 2018 with pictures.
Mr. Footer, you're past your public comment period time. So if this is in the works, I'm sure Mr. McDonald will address your emails, or you can feel free to copy me on it and I will make sure that you get an answer.
I did have one other comment, if you just let me have another 15 seconds.
Mr. Footer, please, in respect of everybody else's time tonight, everyone gets the same amount of time. If I give to you, then everybody else will. So right now, I'm going to say, not right now, and please feel free to email me, or you have my number.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Hi, this is Mike Shepard, 7 Canterbury Lane. I want to express my continued opposition to Ordinance 2577-21, relaxing the 125-foot restriction on restaurants and brew pubs, specifically in B2 and B3. I do want to say out of the gate that I appreciate Deputy Mayor Wasserman's willingness to engage with me on this new ordinance. He's endeavored to answer my questions. I certainly want to acknowledge that. That said, I cannot support the ordinance that will have, in my view, some negative quality of life impacts on my family. I believe there is a petition in the works that Jay Morales is putting forward that I think is a very reasonable approach here to perform an impact study before moving ahead with these changes. And I think to date, there's 50 plus odd residents like myself that are signing that petition and signaling their real concern and opposition here. I think what's put forward in that petition is a reasonable and frankly responsible thing to do for your constituents here. This is a document signed by residents on Canterbury like myself, on Claremont, Meadowbrook, other adjacent roads, the people who are directly next to these commercial lots, and whose quality of life and property values will be impacted here. I on a personal level, I have a young family, and my concerns will always be principally about them, and frankly, the inclusion of brew pubs and the lack of explicit restrictions around hours of operations are an enormous concern to me and my family. This ordinance has real potential to impact our community here, and frankly, to be blunt, families like mine will move away, and others will not move in behind us. I believe this will impact property values, not just on my block on Canterbury, but a domino effect on property values throughout this Glenwood neighborhood we love, and other surrounding areas. So I think there really needs to be careful consideration of those impacts. And I think what is being put forward in this petition, again, with 50 plus of my neighbors signing on it, is to perform an impact study before we move ahead with something of this magnitude, to bring in someone who can properly assess those impacts and weigh those impacts against the perceived benefits here. So I appreciate your consideration of the proposed approach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Deborah Nevis, 65 Knollwood Road. I just had a question about the presentation for the possible conversion from one-way to two-way traffic on Millburn and Essex. I'm just wondering if you can ask the consultant to factor in what the potential impact on the developments at the old Wells Fargo site and the old Annie Says, and potentially the any development that might occur at the Public Works site would have on one-way versus two-way traffic, because those are going to be many more people living at those two ends of Millburn and Essex, as well as if something goes in at the Public Works site. So I don't know if that's being factored in, but if it could be requested, it might be helpful in thoroughly evaluating what this change could bring in terms of traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hildner, you're on if you unmute yourself, or you are unmuted.
I am unmuted. I hope. Can you hear me all right?
We can.
All right, thank you. As I listened to this discussion tonight, I was concerned about what I heard Committeeman Finiak say regarding the position on the suit regarding the SID. I don't have any opinion on the merits of the suit, but I am concerned when I heard that one of the reasons the legal fees have been so high is because there are many suits by members of the community against the township. And there was nothing really said about what they may be. And this is certainly one of those suits, perhaps. But I'm stunned by a comment that says, I'm going to litigate this regardless. And the inference was, I don't really care what it costs, that we're going to litigate this to the end. In my experience, trying cases for almost 50 years, is that there are very few cases that will not benefit from an attempt at mediation. So what I'd like to know is, why is that attitude being taken? Is the township of the opinion that this is a totally meritless suit, that any of the arguments that were given by Mr. Feld and others as to the faults of the SID, the legal faults I'm talking about, are totally without merit, that there's no possibility of losing this lawsuit? and that the legal fees will not be recouped if that's the case. But to say that I don't care basically what it costs, I'm going to litigate to the bloody end, taxpayer money be damned, even though, that, and who knows what that actually involves in a case like this. And I'd like to know why that attitude's being taken and why mediation is not being considered. Judge Moore, who apparently recommended this, I don't know that as a personal fact, but it was represented that that was the case, is a very fine judge, and that he would encourage mediation and that we would disregard it because we're going to litigate it to the end. And maybe that even means defending an appeal or appealing or whatever. I find astounding without further explanation. So I'd like to know why that is the position of the township and whether all members of the township committee feel that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it looks like everyone on the Zoom has spoken. So is there anybody else in the room that would like to make public comment, please? Yep, one by one.
Hi, Jay Morelli, 1 Claremont Drive in Short Hills. I'd like to add on to the comments made by Mr. Shepherd. First, I too would like to acknowledge and thank those on the committee that have responded to questions and concerns regarding this ordinance, both to us and our neighbors. Thank you. And to Mr. McDonald, who met with my wife and I this past Friday and had a very good conversation. With that said, we believe there are still significant concerns with the proposed ordinance. As just one example, the topic of odors. We asked, why is Millburn only requiring restaurants within 125 feet of residential property to minimize odors when other towns have stronger requirements? Take Summit. Ordinance 35-9.14, performance standards for non-residential uses. There shall be no emission of odorous gases or other odorous matter in such a quantity as to be readily detectable without instruments. Or Springfield, Ordinance 35-14, exhaust for all food preparation establishments, regardless of whether they are classified as a restaurant under the terms of this chapter, must be provided with a hood exhaust filtration system to eliminate nuisance odors. Even a member of the planning board who spoke earlier today, Gaston Halpert, asked the obvious question at the planning board meeting. Shouldn't these conditions apply to all restaurants, not just those within 125 feet? Of course they should. And just as importantly, how will these new conditions be monitored and enforced? After the May 18th meeting, we spoke with several of our neighbors on Claremont Drive, Meadowbrook, and Canterbury Lane. All shared concerns, some on noise, some on trash, some on odors, some on rodents. And so we decided to start a petition for impacted residents, which simply asked the township committee to work with us. Perform an impact assessment, then meet with us to discuss. To date, over 50 residents have added their names to the petition. So we hope the township committee respects the wishes of its residents and pauses this ordinance while this assessment occurs. By the way, it was great to hear an actual study being done for two-way traffic. We wish the study would have been done for this ordinance and shared with us in advance of the vote. Thank you. And here's a copy of the petition as it stands today with 50 plus names of impacted residents.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Elaine Becker, 257 Brookhaven Way. I know that Paul Phillips has written to you all, and he has said that the ordinance that was just referred to is substantially agreeing with the master plan. There are several things that he put forward, and maybe there's not much point in my bringing them up, but they're a little bit different than what I read in the master plan. So I wanted to bring up what I think is probably more I think it's more apropos to what this ordinance wants to do. So I will tell you what I have seen. There's community outreach section, and there was a visioning session to do this, and there was also a survey that was taken. And one of the main things that was brought up is the protection of neighborhood character, which I think is very important. The other one is a small town feel that people like, and the 60% of the people like these issues. So, so I think that's very important. And then there are the goals and objectives of the master plan. Goal number 1, encourage appropriate land uses that promote the character of the township as a small suburb of highest quality. Objective number 1 under goal number 1, protect the character of established residential neighborhoods and encourage land use and development at an appropriate scale and density. I think those impact this ordinance that is on hold now. The other thing I wanted to ask, and this is really just, you don't have to answer, but I want to ask, and it's food for thought for you. Has the Township Committee researched how many restaurants have met the 125-foot and been approved by the planning board? How many restaurants with less than 125 feet have gone to the zoning board for a variance and were approved or not, either way? Have members of the Township Committee walked the B3 streets that would be affected by the proposed ordinance on each side of the neighborhood, the neighborhood side, and then the other side on Morris Turnpike? And I wanted to list the streets between Short Hills Avenue and Brookhaven Way that's around up Morris Turnpike. Campbell Road, Glenwood Drive, Baltus Roll Way, Jamie Oak Place, Farley Place, Meadowbrook Road, Elmwood, Claremont, Canterbury, Birchwood, Mount Ararat, and Brookhaven. That's a lot of impact. And it's not just one house that might be the closest. I'm the third house from the end of my cul-de-sac. And I remember many years ago, there was a Southern Rib place turned down because it had too much, it didn't have enough space. And so that's the only one I know of. I've looked in the, I've looked in some reports and I don't find any, in all the resolutions that I was on the planning board for 8 years, I don't think we've really had to. So I'm saying, if it isn't a problem, why are we messing around with it? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Becker. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to address ordinance 257721. Appreciate having this opportunity. And I really just, well, first I'd like to say the other discussions of on this ordinance were actually very intelligent, and I do hope you listen to them. But I have 3 points, 2 of which would probably have you not touch the existing ordinance. And that's the fact that in the decades I've been watching the township, there's been conscious efforts to maintain the residential character. And one of the nice things about the existing ordinance, by not having that large list of permitted usages, is it gave the Board of Adjustment that opportunity to work with the applicants to understand what they were trying to accomplish and to optimize the situation for both the business and the residents. The other issue where I think it doesn't need, the change proposed is not beneficial, is where you're taking away the requirement that, businesses provide parking or by parking permits for their employees. Now, it's been a perennial issue of having convenient parking. I mean, just the other day, I was sitting out having a coffee. I watched the owner of another store park across the street and walk in the store. Now, this kind of a practice does not benefit the consumer. And I think the final thing I would like to mention, which would be needed, which would require a revision of the ordinance, would be this question of 125 feet. And it's basically not required if it's across a street or across a railroad right of way. However, if you've ever lived across the street or a railroad right of way, you'll notice that both odor and sounds carry very well. And therefore, I think you should probably take that provision out. Thank you.
Sir, your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Bill Horvat, I live at 40 Whitney Road.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again. Dominique Urso, 514 Millburn Avenue. I would like to ask Mr. McDonald something, please, and that would be, Mr. McDonald, hi. That would be the letter submitted by my attorney dated May 18th, Ordinance to the Civil Rights Act policy. I would just like to know, when would you do your due diligence in presenting that to the state? And why I'm mentioning this is my parents and I have been in this town for 28 years. They're outstanding members of this community. I went to school with both of your sons. Feel you've known my family for a long time. They're both wonderful gentlemen. I've had the pleasure of hanging out with them throughout the years of school. I am just very saddened that you would treat my family in such a disregard, to not understand why you might be thinking this is all coming, speaking out anger or through the wrong ways. It's that we feel not heard. I'm up here tonight representing my family because my father's a chef. My mother's a waitress for our business. There's not a lot of business. People don't want to work, and we're doing everything to keep our business alive. And that's why it might sound silly to you, or I'm sorry that you feel I shouldn't be up here. I'm wasting my time. I think I'm not trying to quote you. I think I heard that from there, that I'm coming here and just trying to say why the SID is such a big deal for us is because it's a big expense for us. And it's a big expense when you have a lot at stake and invested in this community for so many years. I don't understand why are you fighting good people that are just trying to make ends meet where they can't take the extra expense of more tax? That's all we're trying to say. That's all we're trying to say. Please, we don't want it right now. We cannot afford it right now. It's hard already. It's not helping business. No one's here to fight you. Everything comes out in anger because no one's being heard, and it's sad, and it's a scary time right now. You know, I just wish that would be translated in a different way, and that, yes, it would go to remediation instead of unnecessary litigation that's not needed. I don't know how else to phrase that besides it's really sad, and it's a scary time. And you know what? My parents, the two best people I know, that have worked so hard to put me through college that I don't need any student loan or student debt on their hard work. Okay, I'm here today in a good position. I am because of the hard work and sweat of my parents. They can't afford your tax. Okay, please consider rescinding it because it's tough, and we're angry because we're never heard. Okay, please.
Hi, my name is David Honeysett. I live at 92 Meadowbrook Road in Short Hills. I sent this committee, everybody, an email about 2 weeks ago referencing 2577-21, the change to the business districts impacting residents from restaurants. I'm in the restaurant business for over 30 years. I can tell you that this town, even with the current zoning restrictions, do not enforce code violations. It's toothless. Dave Cuomo does not offer any sort of resolve for residents. We just continue to deal with these problems consistently: odor, rodents, noise, disruptive commercial property owners. It's consistent. I don't want this zoning ordinance changed. It will drastically impact residents. And yes, other people have mentioned residents will move away, and that will happen. And it's already starting to happen on our block. There's already 4 houses within a block of me that are up for sale. I urge you to please do an assessment and a study to reflect the impacts, the real impacts that you will have on this community and our neighborhood. Thank you.
Dean Pasternak, 342 Hobart Avenue. Ms. Eglo, I stand by my comments regarding the Main Street designation and the SID illegalities being a lie. You approved an application to a state entity that was knowingly deficient. Mr. Wasserman led the effort, and a person with character would take responsibility for mistakes. Making up stories about people like me putting down volunteers, which I have never done, is absurd. The $2 million that was paid to Marziti Falcon without approval by TC officials over and above his retention cap is the issue. It's not about the amount, it's the fact that it was approved, paid without approval by elected public officials. That is the issue. It has not been addressed. 3, Mr. Viniak, I just want to say, and I'm trying to keep my cool, but how dare you talk to residents with such condescension and disdain? We are here because we believe we provide a check and balance to a lack of transparency, accountability, and adherence to the rule of law. And we have the right to do that, and we will maintain that right. I have some questions. The TC member has business contained in a property within 200 feet of the notice area of a zoning or other ordinance. Does she have the right to vote on the first and second readings of that ordinance? If the answer is no, what is the proper recourse if that member did in fact vote and did not recuse herself? 2, Mayor, can you tell the public which township committee members have attended municipal governance training? We heard from Mr. Viniak on his training. Would we please have a summary on the rest of the township committee so that we can understand why we're having so many difficulties? Was Perkins Eastman allowed to update their original proposal during the bidding process? Was any other entity that bid allowed to update their proposal during the same process? 4, can members of the public during public comment screen share documents? Simple question. I've asked it and haven't had an answer. My comments. Thanks to the township and all who participated in the Memorial Day Parade. It was well organized and it was great for our community. I'm glad I got a chance to participate. I am, however, baffled that the parade was politicized. Congressman Malinowski's speech did hit a relevant note, especially this evening regarding interacting with this TC. The congressman said our freedoms, including free speech, are owed to our fallen soldiers and we should never forget. On a different topic, I saw something quoted in a local work mom group about 2577-21. Are these the people that are hurting Bacone business regarding this, the petition that was handed to you? This is too part of the big lie. This is not about Millburn patrons putting down a business. We are welcoming to those businesses. We want the township to follow the rule of law. It has not. Thank you.
My name is Jeffrey Feld, 11 Alexander Lane. I am an attorney authorized to practice law in the state of New Jersey. I marched on Saturday in honor and memory of my family members, one who fought at Bunker Hill. My wife's grandfather was gassed in World War I, and he died at an early age. My godfather, my wife, was a Navy pilot who was lost at sea. They were defending our rights to speak. Be very careful. Usually courts and newspapers release information on holiday weekends. 2 major cases came out on Friday, you should read. A case came out today by Judge Sabatino, published opinion. Judge Sabatino is probably one of the most respected people on the appellate division, talking about volunteer liability. You're not volunteers. You're elected officials to took a solemn oath of office. You took an oath to enforce the law. Yesterday, an editorial appeared in the Star Ledger. No one reads the Star Ledger, but especially no one reads the Star Ledger on Memorial Day. I just had to read what Tom Moran wrote. Something about the U.S. Attorney nomination being withdrawn. Murphy said he will renominate Suarez to continue as prosecutor in Hudson County, even though she can't seem to find corruption anywhere in the county or even keep her evidence room locked. These days, our governor is doing all he can to please the machines across the state before his reelection in November. I had a special week last week. Congressman Malinowski's office contacted me on Tuesday to discuss certain issues that's been occurring in this town. He appeared at the rally. I was asked to speak before the Short Hills Association on their 110th anniversary organization. That's a pretty shocking sight that a Hebrew would be invited to an association that years ago when it was founded, it was trying to keep Hebrews out of Millburn. Please listen to me. I'm not here to hurt you. When the Hudson County Civil Presiding Judge takes a special report from a special master that's appointed and says it's not worth the paper it's written on, he's sending a message to the city of Orange Township and major law firms. Do not underestimate me. You heard other people speaking. As to the traffic study, we're going to phase 2. Does anyone have an idea what the cost of phase 2 would be? I don't think anyone heard what that cost would be. And I agree with Ms. Nevis, who says, we heard all this report, but we now know there's going to be redevelopment at Beehive. We know there's going to be redevelopment at Annie Says, and there's going to be redevelopment at the dump. Does anyone factor in the traffic, the volume that's coming in? We need to have that because no one's going to be moving at all with this additional volume.
Thank you, Mr. Feld.
Nancy Stone, 10 Fielding Road, Short Hills. I am absolutely appalled. To quote you, when you opened up your business and they came with a jackhammer in front of your store, and Nettie was walking down the street, I think with Alex, and that first police report was filed against you for holding up a pair of scissors. You suck at your job, Nettie. You suck at your job. That's what you did to her, to the volunteers of the DMDA. That's what you did. And a police report was filed against you. How dare you disrespect Dom and Perry and people who are paying taxes unlike you in this town, freeloading our school system so that, who knows, I thought we would get rid of you when your daughter graduated, but apparently you decided to run again. You should be ashamed of yourself. You want to take another recess? Because I got more and I got another a minute 13 to go. And as far, I don't know how you run your household, but here we're equals. We're not any different. My speech, even though it doesn't agree with yours, I asked to speak with you. I asked to speak with you, Maggie. No one got back to me. We're in litigation. I'm not in litigation. I have no lawsuit against the town. I'm very open and willing, as I was to Michael Paulovecchio, that I made my time available to him. And for whatever reason, shows up, doesn't ring the doorbell. I don't know what happened to him, but I was there. No one else has knocked on my door. Grillo is now marching in Madison and showing it on Explore Millburn that he's in Madison, hasn't knocked on enough doors in Millburn. What the hell is he doing in Madison? And as far as Richard Footer's building is concerned, when you rudely cut him off, he's a statesman in our community. You're nothing here. And
Mrs. Stone, you
for
are
him,
so offensive. You
it
need
is
to stop
offensive
this.
because
You need to stop.
you
speaking
need to-
today
no.
like
We're
that.
taking a
You
recess.
can take
and
a-
you're
there you
not
go,
taking
another
You're
recess.
taking a recess.
So offensive.
That's what you need.
Disgraceful.
You
You're
need to be stopped.
We're taking a recess.
That's right. For her to do that to Richard,
Everybody
how
up
dare,
and
we have an anklet around his building with all this garbage and you're making more garbage.
Terrible person.
It is. You should have come and visit. That's right. And you didn't do it. So now we have to wait. There you go. Oh, we got Maggie now on tape. Hello. Sorry, Richard, we couldn't let everybody know that the.
A motion to adjourn the meeting. Can my committee please come back into the room? A motion to adjourn the meeting. Okay, meeting is over. Good night, Millburn Township.
Yeah, but
We are going into closed session.
we already approved the